Welcome to the Lightforge podcast. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. Hello. We are closing in on the new expansion, the new class, which is Death Knights. So it's a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff indeed.
This is a very special episode because it is a card review episode, and it will cover all of the Death Knight cards. It will cover Basic, and then it will cover Path of Arthas, and then it will cover even March of the Lich King. Because they're all being released at the exact same time with the new expansion. This isn't going to be like a phase release. You don't get to play with the Death Knight before then. So effectively, until in the future when they start shuffling these sets in and out like they do now with Demon Hunter, effectively this is the whole Death Knight package for a while. So you should think of them as essentially one thing. Let's start with just a little bit of Death Knight basics. Death Knights have runes. I guess we'll set it up so that you can understand how we're reviewing these. We have not considered really what the runes mean. Like, we did not go in and say, hey guys, red runes are better than blue runes. So early in the draft, if you pick like a blue 3, you don't get any more reds. And if you don't get any more reds, then you're blocked out of all the great red cards in your offering rate. So therefore, the blue cards are actually worse. We're just assuming that system doesn't exist. Because at the end of the day, that system, where depending on what runes you draft first, it impacts what cards you're being offered later on by blocking out certain cards, is going to have a very small impact on your draft itself. And in almost all cases, definitely in all cases in the early game, but even in almost all cases in the mid and late game, you are going to want to pick the more powerful card, regardless of rune, and then let the chips fall where they may. It's only when you start having a pointed deck already that you want to go in one direction or avoid going in one direction, and that's very advanced stuff. That's just not part of our card review or the math.
Yeah, and look, the system at the end of the day might be quite tilted or quite advanced, and I wouldn't put it past Blizzard to, if they wanted to put in the extra work, do something that's more heavily weighted towards you making these decisions, and they reward you or point your deck in a certain direction. But as of right now, even though we have that information from Matt London that you get to control the direction of your deck, um, it certainly doesn't seem like that is going to be that big of an impact, but it could.
Yep. So that is Death Knight. Is there anything else we should cover about Death Knight before we just jump into the cards? The hero power. The hero power, if you want to keep that in consideration, is 2 mana. You summon a 1/1 charging ghoul, which one is an undead minion. Very important. Some of these undead synergies. And 2, it is also a it'll die at the end of the turn. So it's effectively a ping. It can ping face, it can ping enemies, it can't go through taunts, but it has both synergies with undead, because it is an undead, and also synergies with corpses, because it generates a corpse. And corpse is a mechanic that is unique to Death Knights, and you'll see it a lot. You get to use a certain number of corpses when you play certain cards, and that'll give it the special extra ability. So for those, you have to first obviously generate the corpses. Only your friendly minions count as corpses. So yeah, I think we covered everything now, as far as the mechanics go.
Yep, that's basically it. And then, of course, the way that the runes work and constructed is very not very different, but it's like you have 3 rune slots, and you are able to actively select if you want 3 blood runes, which you shouldn't from what I saw this past week. If you want 3 frost, or if you want 2 frost and 1 blood, etc., etc. But that is how it works. They made one class, but they effectively made this like very dynamic class in which they are printing a lot of cards for, and they want you to feel as though you have a lot more control over these things, and you have a lot more choices, which is very smart. Like they did a great job in the design of this class.
Yeah. And you do have all these choices, so you're going to see all the different mechanics that you know and love or hate in this class. Literally almost like everything. On the other side, it's been pretty easy to actually value these cards. Usually there's new mechanics to play with, and like things get weird. But because this is the first Death Knight set, nothing was really weird. Everything was pretty straightforward, and there was everything, but it's all recycled. So it was all kind of pretty easy and straightforward on the math side of how these cards like that were valued at the base. The other thing about the Death Knight cards before we jump into it is that they're not overpowered. We mentioned this in our Death Knight kind of talk in earlier Light Forges, but you can look through these cards yourself, and I think most people's first impression is like, hey, this is not an overpowered thing, whereas when they looked at Demon Hunter, they're like, oh my god, what is happening? And everybody was right about Demon Hunter. Oh my god, what was happening? All the cards got nerfed. I don't think that's going to be the case here with Death Knight. Feels like they've learned their lesson. There's some powerful Death Knight cards. There's not a lot of bad Death Knight cards. There's a lot of good Death Knight cards. Almost all of them are playable even in Arena. But the actual premium ones, like even A-tier cards, there's not that many of them. And there's basically no S-tier cards outside of Legendary. It's not going to be a terrible thing for this set to enter the arena when it comes to power balance, when it comes to just kind of swings and all that. It's going to be a very normal thing. I feel like it's going to integrate very nicely. And the other way it integrates very nicely is that it's not doing anything crazy, right? Remember Demon Hunter with all the new mechanics and also a hero power that cost only 1 mana? Death Knight stuff is tame. It's recycled stuff, and the hero power costs 2 mana and is effectively a ping for like the vast majority of times you're going to use it, which we already have in like half the classes. So everything's just very tame, very easy to slot into this game, will not be super game changing. I think it'll be fun, right? This is kind of like good balance, good design as far as the class goes. And I think the Death Knight generates enough excitement by itself that you didn't really need the mechanics themselves to be like eye-opening.
Yep. So get ready to see a lot of cards in like the B tier category, which, as you remember, historically, B tier cards are cards that you are really happy to have in your deck.
Mm-hmm.
So Death Knights have a ton of very, very good cards, but perhaps you guys have been playing a lot of the recent arenas. Let's remember that the recent arenas are not sort of the way that things are. It's not going to be Mookless Champion closing out a game, right? It's not going to be kind of an Obsidian Destroyer closing out a game. We are going back to a meta, and we have been in metas, if you remember, like the Colossal meta, like all of the, even recently, like the ones with just Skullman's Academy in them. We're in metas in which card draw is very, very easy to get. Generation is very apparent. You don't just have vanilla stats. You have vanilla stats that also discover, that draw. You have big tempo swings, right? When something like a derailed coaster is just considered fair, right? Like it's obviously very good, but it's like, oh, okay, they played a derailed coaster. It's not like, oh my god, how could they possibly have a derailed coaster here? So that's the sort of meta that we are returning to. These are the expectations that we're returning to. So when we say, something is not that powerful, it's like, okay, you have to expect this in 2022. And if you're expecting less than this, you weren't realistic with your expectations. That's it. So of course there are very, very powerful cards, even with today's expectations, right? But some of these cards that are, yes, clear power creeps on old variants of cards, and you're gonna see they're like, oh, okay, this is just a good card now, and it's because that's where we're at.
All right, let's jump in. This order, we're just going to go in from the top down, and so the order is going to be commons, then rares, then epics, and each of the sets first. So first it's just the basic card, and then it'll be the Path of Arthas cards, and then it'll be the new set, March of the Lich King cards. And within each of them we go by rarity, and within each rarity we go by mana. So this is not how we normally do it for the neutrals. because this is not a neutral one. This is a class. We're not going with like the top 5 in Death Knight cards. You'll hear them. We'll point them out that they're really powerful when we get to it. So pay attention. We're also not showing the tier score on the screen because that would take way too much work, unfortunately. So instead, you just gotta listen. And this will be updated into our Google Sheet spreadsheet that we keep with all of our card predictions that we never update. Even if we're wrong, even if they buff or nerf a card, it's not a tier list. We're not updating this stuff. It's just our predictions. So these will forever go down as our predictions. And if we're super wrong, like say with some locations, I see some people in Twitch chat mention that, they're wrong forever. And if you're wondering about that and you're remembering what happened in Nathria, I actually went back because we were off in Nathria a bit on the top cards. We had Sin Runner at A and Stoneborn General at A, and Sin Runner should be a B+. If we calculated it, it should be a B+, not an A. And Stoneborn General should be a B. So that was just like, that was our bad.
I think the Stoneborn General was also a meta thing.
Well, the meta made it terrible, right? Because the meta made it worse than even a B. But it's still like, even in it would have to be a very good meta for it to actually reach a potential of maybe A. Because but I mean, you guys you've seen Stoneborn General now in a number of metas, and you'll see it in other metas where it'll be better. But I don't think you're going to look at it and be like, oh yeah, they rated it correctly at A, which we defended for a while. But I'm taking that back now. That being said, Famished Fool is still an A. I know it doesn't necessarily always perform like it's an A. I fully believe that is a meta thing, and Famished Fool is just a ridiculous card. Anyway, back to...
I think you'll find people who agree with you there.
Okay.
Like, a lot of people like Famished Fool. Yeah.
Good. Because we got those are the 3 like cards that were like, these are A, they're so good, and then the stats came out and we're like, oh no, and then we like played with them and we're like, oh no.
No, I think people might disagree with you on something like the General or Sin Runner. I just from my feeling, I think people more agree with you.
Yeah, on the Famished Fool. Good. Because the Famished Fool is the only one we're keeping at A. If we were to update the list. Okay, Death Knight. Refocusing, going to Death Knight. Hopefully this works. If you are watching this on YouTube, we will be showing the cards, or Twitch. We will be showing the cards. If you are listening to this on a podcast, we will read the cards out loud before we do it, as usual. So, first card we're going to do is Bodybagger. Bodybagger is a common neutral in the basic set. All these are going to be common neutrals until I tell you it's going to be a rare. So it's 1 mana, 1/3 undead. Battlecry, gain a corpse. So it's as if it has 2 bodies for the corpse mechanic. But otherwise, it's just a 1 mana, 1/3 undead. It's a C.
Yep. Look, 1 mana, 1/3s are good. Undead tag matters, as you'll see like very soon. It matters for some things, but this is fine. I think if it didn't have all of these like a 1 mana, 1/3, I think typically is what, a D+.
No, I think it's typically a C too, because it's 1 mana, 1/3 is like about Yeti. There. It's like a very low C, right? It's like would you take a 1 mana, 1/3 or a Yeti? Questionable, right?
Yeah, it's kind of questionable. It depends on your deck.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of where it is. And Yeti is the very bottom of C or the very top of D+. So this one bumps it up to a C.
Yep, that's fair.
Next one is Skeletal Sidekick. Skeletal Sidekick is a 1 mana, 1/2 undead. Battlecry, give a friendly undead +2 attack.
There you go. Look, undead tag already doing things. This is a C. You're going to be able to get this off. I mean, first of all, the hero power is undead, right? So I'm not saying it's great, but you could always hero power and then add to its attack as well. So you're not never, but very rarely saying like, well, this is completely wasted. So it's a C. It's fine.
Yep. If you think about it with the hero power, it's 3 mana for a 3/1 charge and a 1/2. Like, fine. Okay. Next one is these are all the common basic cards, so you're not going to get a lot of super fun stuff here. Heart Strike is the next one. This one is a red card. Red is what, blood? I marked them with the color, so I'm gonna start saying red, blue, green instead of blood, frost, and unholy.
It's okay. Like I'm not gonna change it, guys. We need to change for ADWCTA. Okay, so he's gonna just say 1 green, 2 blue, and you just gotta know that means like, okay, 2 blue. That means double frost.
Yeah. All right.
We have to do this for it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so 1 red, 1 mana, 1 red, Heart Strike. Deal 3 damage to a minion. If that kills it, gain a corpse. Okay, gaining a corpse, again, is not the biggest deal. It's like helpful, but especially in the arena, I get the feeling you'll have plenty of corpses because you don't have that many class cards, and of the class cards you have, only a few of them use corpses. It's not like, oh, I got a Death Knight class card, it's going to use a corpse. No, the corpse mechanic is only in, I don't know, maybe a quarter of the cards or something. So the corpses are going to stack up. Gaining a corpse is not that valuable. And your hero power always gains you a corpse. So you can also just get more corpses if you need to. But it is 1 mana, deal 3 damage to a minion. And that's good. So it's a B.
Yep.
Alright, you want to do the next one? Battlefield Necromancer. I'll read it, and then you can take the first stab at it.
Oh yeah.
Battlefield Necromancer is a 2 mana 2/3. It's 2 greens, by the way, 2 unholies. At the end of your turn, raise a corpse as a 1/2 Risen Footman with Taunt. This is a fun/annoying one.
This is a fun/annoying one. This is a really annoying one. We have it as an A tier card. A tier cards are really freaking good. This is just a super duper good way to use your corpse. 1/2 taunts, like, I know the meta is like very different and everything, but you guys have seen how annoying like Annoyatrons are. The reason that Gold Shard Footmans are bad is just because that takes up a card. You effectively like are able to use your corpses to impact the board in this way. I think it's just super good. You don't give up anything either. Yeah, I think it's just a super solid A tier card.
Yeah, definitely. It's our first A tier card. There are 4 A tier cards that are non-legendary in the basic set, and then more, in the other set. So this is the first one. You have a 1/2 taunt. It protects your 2/3. Stuff doesn't get through. You get another 1/2 taunt. Like, this is what you want, right? If you think about, what is that card? Like Green Jelly? It's like 5 mana 3/3, and it does the same thing. Without corpses, obviously. But that's 5 mana. This is 2 mana. Yeah, it's a 2/3, but who cares? Right? Like, this is an absurd power creep from that card. Now, that card is bad. It's not unplayable, but it's pretty bad in today's standards. So you did need to power bump it quite a bit, but this is a lot of power bumping.
Yeah, this is analogous to Green Jelly. And you don't need this to live on forever. Like, all you need is for this thing to live like 2 turns to be very happy. And I understand, look, you're using up corpses, right?
Yeah.
But this is one of those things in which I think you are very happy to use the corpse for. And I don't know if you calculate it. How many cards, like, what's the sort of ratio between like cards that use corpses and how many like corpses are you expected to have in the deck? Did you like do that sort of calculation?
No, because most of the corpses that you have in your deck, so corpse generation is pointless. Most of the corpses you have you're going to play it. They're going to come from your hero power. You're going to play minions. Like, it's arena. You're going to get corpses. But the amount of cards that actually use corpses, and you'll see, it's not like there's not a lot of them, but no matter how much a lot of them there are, there's still way more other class cards that don't use corpses, right? So I think these kinds of cards are made so that if you are splashing this, and in Arena, you're almost always splashing this kind of stuff, rather than going like hardcore corpse build. Because if you have a hardcore corpse build in Constructed, I assume you need to generate corpses to keep it going. But in Arena, you can't get a hardcore corpse build because you can't generate corpses. So if you go too far down the green side, the unholy side, maybe you'll have too many cards that use up corpses, and then you won't have enough corpses to go on. But for the most part, the Arena pacing is kind of slow, and it's got a lot of focus on just regular minions, and something that takes one corpse a turn is not going to make that big of a dent. You're going to go to later cards and you're going to be like, use up to 8 corpses, and you're like, oh, well, after I play that card, I'm not going to have any corpses left. But this card is not, it's not having that big of a deal. Like, at worst, you just hero power every turn, right? You deal 1 damage and it summons them 1/2. Okay, so that's Battlefield Necromancer. This is the first power card that we have for Demon Hunter. I mean, for Death Knight. Next is Froststrike. This is another A-tier card. I'm just going to spoil it for you right now. A lot of A-tier cards coming at you real quick. Super, super good card. It's 2 mana, 2 blue, or frost, for Froststrike. And it is a frost spell, categorized as such. Deal 3 damage to a minion. If that kills it, discover a frost rune card. That is any card that requires a frost rune. So it's a class card. And that's really good. They just added a discover a class card onto a normal 2 mana deal 3 damage card. That's super good.
Yeah, it's super good. Like, the condition of you have to kill it, I don't think it's really any condition at all. I don't think there's much that has to be explained. And also, these are the Death Knight spells, right? Death Knight Frost spells, in which Frost seems just pretty good in the first place. But additionally, they're all new spells. So it's not like you're diluting it with crappy mage secrets, right? Like crappy classic mage secrets, but also crappy like mage secrets from the early on expansions. No, these are all like new spells, so your quality is real high.
All right. Harbinger of Winter is the next card. This one is another 2 blue card. 2 mana, 2/2, undead, death rattle, draw a frost spell. This one only comes in at a C, and you may be wondering, hey, we had a 2 mana deal 3 damage where you got to discover a frost rune spell, and that one was like A tier insane. How is this one so bad? Well, 2 mana 2/2s are bad. 2 mana deal 3 damage is pretty good. That makes up a lot of the score difference. And on top of that, it's a death rattle. You don't get to discover it, and you have to have a frost spell in your deck. Death Knights have frost spells, and with the way drafting works, if you go down 2 blue, you're going to be offered some frost spells. But you could also run out of frost spells, depending on draw order, and then this card just does nothing.
Yep. And then, of course, the ability to discover inside of the game is more valuable than you drawing something that you drafted before you had that information, right? Like, you being able to discover means you essentially you're like drafting much later on, which is always a lot more valuable. So this is fine. This is okay. And look, if you are later on in the draft and you have a ton of frost spells, sure, you can pick this over other cards. It's not, obviously this is one of those things that's dynamic and will change with your draft.
All right. Next up is Chillfallen Baron. Chillfallen Baron is a 3 mana 2/2 undead, battlecry, and death rattle. Draw a card. I love this card's card design because it's basically a giant middle finger to Arcane Intellect. 3 mana, draw 2 cards? How about 3 mana, draw 2 cards, and put a 2/2 undead on the board? That's the meta now. So yeah. Unfortunately, I'm serious when I say that's the meta now. That's the power level now. This card's not an A tier card. It's almost there, but it's a B+ tier card. Not quite an A tier card. You can give an extra 2/2 onto Arcane Intellect, essentially, and not hit it, and not hit a A tier card. That's how like power creep we've gotten.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't just like adding a 2/2 body. It's like you're adding a corpse, right? You're adding an undead as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, this is sort of where we're at. I mean, Arcane Intellect is just like not that great.
Arcane is like bad.
Yeah. So that's where we are. This is a solid B plus card. I think you're happy to have it. I think you're happy to play it. You still want to play something else on turn 3, but this is like the super loot hoarder.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. You want to take the next one? It is Remorseless Winter.
Remorseless Winter. Let's go. All right. Let's read it. Remorseless
Okay.
Winter. Yeah, you read it.
Okay. It is 4 mana, 1 blue. Remorseless Winter. Deal 2 damage to all enemies. Draw a card. Frostspell.
And it's Frost. So they just purely power crept on Consecration. Like it's a pure power creep on Consecration. It costs the same. You do exactly the same thing as in like you even damage your face just like Consecration, except you get to draw a card. I'm sorry, Paladins. It just is what it is. You know, Paladins, you were created in like 2014. This is a class that's created in 2022. And that's what happens. You you have to attach an extra card to it. This is an A tier card. And it's just kind of funny because if you remember when, you know, Hearthstone was in its infancy and you saw those like the Trump Arena tier list, the what was it? The Icy Veins tier list, right? Consecration was a top card for Paladins. And now Consecration, you know, it's still very useful. You still find times in which you really like it. But I don't think anybody would argue it's like, oh, Consecration is the card that like, you know, Paladins all want. A lot of it's going to be neutrals. A lot of it's going to be like class legendaries, of which it's not very hard to get class legendaries anymore. So this is where we're at. I don't know what like do you have a score for a Consecration nowadays? Because for us, this is like A
Probably.
tier.
Yeah. Consecration is
Yeah.
probably like a B.
Yeah, it's like a B-ish, right?
Yeah.
So this is A. It's great. It's really nice. You rarely get anything higher than A. So when you see this, I'm not saying it's an auto pick because there are some super crazy things, and there's going to be some super crazy things in neutrals as well. But this is uh almost going to be an auto pick, as it should be. It's ridiculously strong.
Yeah. We actually was one of the late cards that changed scores because I had done the score twice, and both times I read it as deal damage to all minions rather than all enemies because my mind just could not comprehend that this was not Volcanic Potion with an extra card draw attached to it at 4 mana, right? And instead, this was actually just Consecration. Just Consecration.
So not only did it not hit their face, but it also hit your minion.
Yes.
In your variant.
Yes, and I was like, oh, this is an okay card. It's actually not that great. I'm surprised they didn't make it better. And it was just so much better that it was outside the scope of my ability to read.
Yeah. So once again, this is an A, and if you're wondering why it isn't an S, it's because I think you guys have seen the extent of S's. You know, we're getting into like colossals territory, right? We're getting
colossals are S plus and above S plus, even they're like S plus plus, the good one. So,
sure.
but it is like S is what is it? Caverns. That's always my pick for S.
It's Caverns. It is what else? Arbor Up. Arbor Up was
an S.
Was one.
Arbor Up is like the lowest
like
S.
Examples. Yeah.
Like this is not at that level, but it's close, right? It's A. I mean, it's not that close. It's not even A plus, but it's very good. Yeah,
it's very good. Yep.
Okay. Next up, we have. Why can't I find this card? Did I just like make up a card?
No, it is going to be higher up, I believe.
Oh yeah, there we go. Okay,
it's higher up, right?
Yes. Yeah. So the card is Deathstrike. Deathstrike is 1 red. It's 4 mana. Deal 6 damage to a minion. Lifesteal. So you have a fireball that can't go face, and you get lifesteal instead.
Yep, indeed. So, this is going to be what is it? A C?
Yeah, this is going to be a C. And C's are better than a Yeti. Like, it's fine, but it's nothing special. This is the power creep that's happening nowadays. This is nothing special. You fireball and you get 6 extra health, and it's just not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, like it's good. However, the thing that's really funny about this is health matters. So when you look at it, you're like, whoa, the lifesteal is really good. Yes, it is very good for you. The fact that like this is not a fireball, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you cannot go to their face with it.
For the record, fireball is rated higher.
Yes, as it should. Because the ability to close a game out before craziness happens is worth a lot. It's worth so much these days. So the heal is good, but for a damaging spell that can't go face, I'm not saying we penalize it like a ton, but that really does matter.
Like, what is... Think of the latest Maw and Disorder. There was this mage spell, right? That basically like removes something from the game. And that was 4 mana. That's your like most hardcore hard removal. 4 mana. This one only deals 6 damage. A lot of things in this game have more than 6 health. So yeah, you're healing 6, but wouldn't you rather just get rid of death rattles and totally remove anything? Like, this is not a hard removal. And it kind of should be by today's standards.
Yep. Okay. I think that's all we need to say about that.
Next one is Possessifier. Possessifier is 5 mana, 1 green, 3/3 Battlecry. Summon 2 1/1 fighters with Rush and Reborn. 2 1/1 fighters with Rush and Reborn. So when things are reborn, they get generated with 1. They get like a death. It's essentially a death rattle where they only have 1 health. But these are 1/1s anyway, so they just like kind of like pop up again. And they have Rush again, because it keeps all the things that it has. They effectively get to deal 4 damage, however you choose, and you get a 3/3 base.
I mean, look, this is a better bomb lobber, right? Like, by far. This is like a better-ish kind of derailed coaster. I mean, depending.
Maybe.
Yeah. This is certainly like a really good standalone play, right? Like, for example, with the bomb lobber, that's a terrible standalone play. Like, if the board is empty, you kind of can't play it. This, you can just toss it there. So this is a B. This is a B, and I think if you want to say it's like, oh, it's quite good. It's like a high-ish B.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with that. But that's sort of where we're at. You can see what it lacks. Like, you probably don't win the game off of this. It's just like a really solid piece for your deck that'll push the advantage or help you come back. And that's sort of where Bs are.
This is just like, if someone plays this, I'm like, oh, I expected this. This is just kind of the quality of cards in your opponent's deck that you expect in a standard meta. If you remember from like 6 months ago, not the current meta or the prior metas. Basically, not since Nathria came out. But before that, and that's what we're going back to. This is a pretty expected but very powerful card, right? Expected power. Whereas A tier cards is like, what? Like, some of these A tier cards, like we just went over that one, which Frozen, whatever, Frost, Remorseless Winter, where my mind couldn't even comprehend. Okay. So, after Possessifier is Army of the Dead. 5 mana, and this is a 2 green. It is a shadow spell. Raise up to 5 corpses as 2/2 Risen Ghouls with Rush. So that is 10/10's worth of stats for 5 mana. Pretty good. And they all have Rush. Pretty good. Gives you a bunch of corpses.
Pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, you look at it, you're like, oh, it uses 5 corpses. Well, okay, it also literally gives you back 5 corpses. So it's not actually using up the corpses even. You just have to have it. It also isn't gated
No, it does not.
Oh, it does not?
By the way, if you don't know this mechanic, risen things do not give you corpses.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yes.
Okay, well, I don't think it affects the score because this was well in the A category, and the fact that it is not going to give you back 5 corpses does not drop it from an A.
No, it does not. Not for me, anyways. These are scores that we agree with, so no, it certainly does not change it from the A rating for me. But for all of you guys out there, look, maybe ADWCTA was just testing you guys. He isn't. He isn't.
No, I have no idea. Ooh,
But this is the reason.
Wait, how do you know this?
We know this.
Oh, because Risen Ghoul literally has a additional description on it that says doesn't leave a corpse.
Yes, okay. That's another way for me to say we know this by now by reading.
Okay. I mean, I didn't read. Okay, I just thought, oh, this was like the skeletons. Remember how we had to revalue all the freaking mage cards from the last expansion, because I just assumed that they were all 2/2s that did nothing and were vanilla, because it would be totally silly if they were actually the skeletons that like had death rattles deal 2 damage. And then they were, and I was like, well, all these cards went from being okay to being absurdly powerful.
Yep.
Okay, well, this thankfully didn't change anything. But yeah, Army of the Dead is a A-tier card. It is a super, super good card. 10 damage, mostly you get to decide which way they go.
Yep, super duper good. It certainly doesn't impact my thoughts on the card. It did impact your understanding of a mechanic in this game, though.
Yes. Yeah. Can you play it on curve? Maybe. Depends on what you played before that.
Yeah, maybe. Totally. Yeah.
5 corpses on turn 5. Totally doable. Yeah. Not always. Maybe not even most of the time. Depends on your deck. But doable. All right. Next up is Gnome Muncher. This one's a 6 mana card. We're getting to the higher mana cards. It is 1 red. It is a 5/6 taunt with lifesteal, and at the end, also undead. At the end of your turn, attack the lowest health enemy. So it's understated pretty heavily. With 6 mana, you should get more than a 6/6 rush. Not a 5/6 rush that you can't control. The taunt is helpful, but you're going to lose a bunch of health to begin with because you've already attacked something, because it effectively has a weird form of rush because it's attacking the lowest health enemy at the end of your turn. You get some health from it. That's nice. You always get some health. The lifesteal will always trigger because you're attacking something. But overall, it's just kind of like, it has the potential to be insanely good, and it doesn't quite make it there.
So with everything you're saying, I think people are expecting it to be like a C or
something. Oh, no. This is B+. I'm trying to describe
it's good.
Why it's not an A.
See, how many out of you guys are surprised? And with what he already said, you guys were expecting like a C or a C+. No, this card is good, dude. Yeah. Let's talk about how good it is and how you can just deal 5 face damage to quite a few people. And even if you don't kill them right away, the fact that they were at 10 health and now they're at 5 and they're forced to deal with you is huge. The fact that, you can charge something that was probably going to die anyways, or was kind of like a small thing that you might have wanted to value trade next turn anyways, that's huge. The immediate heal is huge. So once again, you kind of just baited people because you're like, well, the body's not good. This ain't great. You're like negging
but there's like a lot of things, right? Like it like adds up. But I just want people to not go crazy with this card. I feel like this is the kind of card that you can look at and be like, okay, so it has Rush, it has Wind Fury, essentially, in a weird form. It has Taunt, it has Lifesteal. Like, what? Like, it does have all those things. They're just all kind of like nerfed versions of all of them, except the Lifesteal. The Lifesteal's super good. But like, the stats are nerfed, the Taunt is nerfed, the Rush aspect is nerfed, the Wind Fury aspect is super nerfed.
Yes, but look, it's a B+. I think most people would agree with that. Like, the ability to go face, and here's the thing, the ability to go face doesn't matter early on until it does matter, right? So when this thing goes face is when it matters the most. As in, I mean, first of all, if it's an empty board, then you just get 5 free face damage with 5 heal. That's
Yeah.
fantastic, right? Wow, that's great. You're basically holy firing their face for free. Well, not for free, but on top of the body. It protects you, right? Like you immediately get the 5 heal. It protects you if you're in trouble, and it gets to go offensive. Like B plus, this is a good card. B
Mm-hmm.
plus is quite high, and it's because it does so much whenever you need it. Super like this card.
Okay. I mean, it's not an A tier card.
Yeah, I think it's held back by a couple. Like it is awkward, right?
It's
Sometimes the ability does get in the way. If we're ever in a meta in which there is like a basilisk or something, you're just like, oh god, like stop.
yeah.
There are times in which the ability, you're like, please don't attack that thing.
Yeah,
Um,
and also it's like it's still easy to remove, right? Like if you put it out there and it
yeah,
eats like
yeah,
a
it's not
3/2,
invincible.
it's
Yeah,
5/3 afterwards. Like it's gonna die the next turn. And it was 6 mana. Um so yeah. It's a very complicated card. Like this is one of those cards that you're just like, why is this a common card? This feels like an epic card, but it's a common card. And so it's also an ugly card. I think that's what's also hurting my like kind of appreciation for this card and why I'm kind of down on it. It's like this guy's ugly. I mean, if he's a Gnome Muncher, I don't know how dashing of a picture you're imagining, but if you're listening to this on a podcast, you can't see the picture. This is like even amongst the undead, this is not a good one.
can you show me a good looking undead? Like
Well,
what's
I
a
mean, there's some cool looking undeads or fierce looking undeads. This guy's just like a fat, slobby, half his face is falling off, but he's not like
what about
scary.
patchwork?
Huh?
What about
I don't
patchwork?
know. What does patchwork look like? Oh, patchwork looks way better. I mean, not like nicer looking, but like way more together, right? Like I like the art for patchwork.
Hmm.
And it's not the No Muncher art. I just mean it's the No Muncher. It's the character. Like that is just it's not doing it for me.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, the new patchwork art is I think even better than the like battlegrounds patchwork art. Anyway,
Alrighty.
enough of my aesthetic appreciation of the undead or lack thereof. The final common card in Basic is a weapon. It's your first weapon of Death Knights. Yes, Death Knights have weapons, of course. It is a 6 mana 5/2 lifesteal weapon, and it's 2 red. That's what it takes for you to start using these weapons. It's what can you say? It's a 6 mana for 5/2. It has lifesteal, but who cares that much about lifesteal? When it's like 10 life, right? Like you know how much it's going to steal over the course of 2 turns, and it's not on curve anymore the way Arcanite Reaper is. So it was just like much worse than Arcanite Reaper.
It's there. It's fine.
Like yeah, I don't know. What do we give it?
We gave it a C.
Yeah, okay, that's fair, right? Like it is still a
Yeah,
weapon.
it's look. Well, look. It still has lifesteal,
Mm.
right? It still has lifesteal to it. The lifesteal really redeems. I mean, I'm not saying it redeems it, right? But
Like
it
it's
helps
a
it out a
weapon.
lot. It does a lot of heavy lifting here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a weapon. Weapons are really good in arena, but it's like the fairest weapon you could freaking think of in the arena.
Super fair.
Like, and that's not good in today's metas. You do not want fair as a as a description of a card.
Yep. So it's a C. You'll pick it sometimes. It'll be fine.
All right, so now let's go into the rare cards. The first rare card in Basic is Plagued Grain. This one has 3 green requirements, unholy. So you got to have a very unholy focused one for this card. And it means if you ever pick this card in a draft, if you're ever offered and picked it, you will see no other class cards besides unholy cards. Something to think about. But the card itself is not good, so you should not pick it. It's 1 mana, gain 4 corpses, which again we've established corpses don't matter that much. Shuffle 4 crates into your deck that summon a 2/2 undead when drawn. So, you know all those cards that do nothing and shuffle stuff into your deck, and then you can maybe draw them, and how they're all bad? Well, this one's bad too. It's a D. It's not totally unplayable, but like if you play it on turn 1, it's like actually totally fine. Because you may have supercharged some of your other cards that can now come out on curve with the corpses and whatever, right? And you have a long time to draw your 2/2s. But like if you get it in the middle of the game, like what are you doing? You just wasted a card.
Yeah, it's just slow. Like I understand. So first of all, Plagued Grain, I think this is a card that has a lot of like I saw people using it in Constructed, right, in the tournaments this past week, but this is one that you just don't want to kind of shuffle these things in, wait for it to come out, etc., etc. And then even when you get like the first one on a delay, and then you get the second one, a bigger like anything that's delayed, you really need for it to make up for the lost time, right? And it just doesn't really do that. The corpses are nice, the 2/2 bodies are fine, and for 1 mana, you're not giving up that much, and that's sort of why it's not lower. But
yeah,
you don't want this.
So there is something to this drafting thing, and I feel like we should mention it. And it's that any card in the early draft that has 3 of one color attached to it in the arena means if you pick that card, all of your future class cards that are being generated will all be of that. So you can create super synergies. And when you're looking at super synergies, freezing everything a lot like is potentially a synergy, but the really good super synergy is Unholy. It is the green stuff. Because that's your corpse generation and your usage of corpse. That's your undead buffs. It all comes together in a nice package. And in Arena, having some synergies is super, super good. So, Plague Grain's a D overall. But if you want to convince me, depending on the meta, depending on, you know, whatever things, that this is a totally pickable card as your first pick, I'll buy it. If the Unholy package itself is super synergistic, and again, this all affects offering rates and all this stuff that we don't know, right? And the meta that we don't know, because we don't know what road is going to be in the rotation. There's so much stuff we don't know. But in the arena, this could be a much higher pick. And any card that has 3 of a certain rune could be a much higher pick in the early parts of the draft, depending on all these factors that we can't possibly predict.
Yep. So we'll see. We shall see. But from what I know so far, and from my understanding of this card, I'm like, yeah, it's probably too slow.
Yep.
Too slow, doesn't do it.
Like the card itself is still not good. You're kind of like picking it as a way to manipulate your draft.
Probably. From the way I understand it. Like, because it seems as though that is like a one-stop shop to lock yourself in, right?
Yep.
To Unholy. That might be amazing. I don't know.
And it might suck. It may be even more undraftable.
True. It could just be even more undraftable.
Okay. Noxious Cadaver is up next. If I can find the Noxious Cadaver. There we go. It's a 1 mana, 1/2, 1 red, undead. Battle cry, deal 2 damage to an enemy and your hero. So let's break it down. 1 mana for a 1/2, which kind of, you should get a little more for 1 mana, but it's like a thing. And you also deal 2 damage to an enemy, which, you know, again, you should get a little more these days for 1 mana, but that's still super good. But you do take 2 face damage. And it's a B. We rated it a B.
Yep, it's a B.
Like, it's nice. Too small. It doesn't do enough for it to be, like, super good, right? Like, but what it does, it's very efficient.
Yep. I think that is fair.
Next up is Defrost. 2 mana, 1 blue. It's a Frost spell. Draw a card. Spend 2 corpses to draw another. So this one is a C+. It's 2 mana to draw 2 cards. You do have to use up 2 corpses, so you're losing a little bit there. But again, you're going to get so many corpses. Like, this is 2 corpses is not going to be that big of a deal. So it's 2 mana, draw 2 cards. And that is a C+. Like, I told you guys, Arcane Intellect is trash these days. Like, they really need to, you know, make it a 2 mana card. That's just kind of how it is. They've made Thoughtsteal a 2 mana card.
All right, so Defrost is a nice little C plus card.
Hmm.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, we're always using Arcane Intellect as kind of like a foundational point. But wait, so what would its rating be right now?
I can actually probably do that super quick. Because it's a
Do it.
very basic card. Arcane Intellect will be a C tier card. Yes, it will be a C tier card.
I think that's fair.
And this is
Yeah.
a C plus.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair, actually.
All right. And what was the other? What did we give? Chillfallen Baron. Chillfallen Baron's a B plus card. If you're looking at all the draw two card kind of cards I'm putting next to each other.
Okay.
Okay. Next is Bonedigger Geist. Again, if I can find these cards. There we go. Bonedigger Geist, 2 mana, 1 green. It's a 2 mana 2/2 undead. Battle Cry. Spend a corpse to gain +1/+2. So it could be a 3/4. Or it's a 2 mana 2/2. So any of these things that has like spend a corpse, you're gonna have a corpse before you play this card. Right? Like you have to be really pushed to play this card as actual 2. But it means it probably can't come out on curve unless you, 1, have a 1-drop, and 2, you can make your 1-drop die. Which, pretty hard. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it doesn't happen in most games. So this is a questionable 2-drop, but it is almost always a 2 mana 3/4 at the cost of 1 corpse. And that's a C.
Yeah, look, if you can guarantee a 1-drop, this is obviously
A dead
pretty
1-drop.
good.
A dead
Yeah,
1-drop.
a dead 1-drop. That's the problem, right? It has to die as well. So you have to be able to kill it off. If you kill it off, is it going to be advantageous in the first place? I don't know, maybe, right? And then later on, the question is like, what is the value of a 2 mana 3/4 later on in the game? It's not that valuable. Like the game has moved past that, right? In the current meta, you drop a totem golem, and I know overall it's, but you drop a totem golem, and like the amount of pressure that you're able to put on sometimes, in this weird meta that we're in right now, is a lot, right? You feel the effects of a totem golem when it is dropped. Uh, if you drop a totem golem later on, I don't even care in this meta, right? And in the new meta, I just really don't care. The
Does
amount
not
of
do stuff.
AoEs and comeback mechanics and crazy like 4-for-1, 5-for-1 cards that either we have seen and maybe in the meta, or we haven't even seen yet, right? Like crazy legendaries that are still being revealed. We just saw some crazy ones today. Um, you getting a 2 mana 3/4 really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things.
People in chat right now are asking, do you coin hero power this if you have a coin? Like coin hero power and then it'll buff this, right? Because you'll have a corpse. You do not. I think chat is leaning towards sometimes. No. You do not. Like this, that would be the same as coining out a totem golem. You ever coin out a totem golem as your first? Not even your first move, your second move. So you would coin out
Wait,
a
you don't
nothing.
even get the initiative.
Yeah, you would like coin out a totem golem that has like what do you call it? The thing that keeps it. Oh, why am I blanking on this? You know the thing that makes it not really on the board and it pops out the next turn. What do you call that?
Dormant.
Dormant. Yeah, that has dormant 1. You'll coin out a totem golem with dormant 1, and then you lose your next turn. Would you do that? No, you wouldn't.
Yeah,
You're looking
look,
shocked that I don't remember the key word dormant.
yeah, you know what? Forget it. We're gonna move on. But no, like this is one of those things in which you obviously don't do that because for like I'm understanding why we would do that. Because I'm trying to explain why you wouldn't do that. I'm like, because you just won't.
Yeah,
It's
because
not
you
mana
just will.
efficient. You
Yeah,
don't gain
because
anything.
you
So
spent
you
4
just
mana to get a spider tank. Why would you spend 4 mana to get a spider tank?
yeah. Well,
Especially
sorry,
a
spider
delayed
tank
spider.
that dealt 1 damage to their face,
Oh,
or
yes,
that dealt
yes.
1 damage to
The spider
something,
tank that undead spider tank that dealt 1 damage to their face.
True. So don't do that.
Don't do that.
And this is why this is a C. It's fine,
Yeah.
but there's some weird oddities with it. And whenever you gain the advantage much later on, it's not really the advantage.
Yeah. Okay, next card. Anti-Magic Show. This is one of those first cards that they reveal to us for God knows what reason. It's 3 mana, 1 green, shadow spell, give your minions +1/+1, and can't be targeted by spells or hero powers. This one's a D. It is bad. In Arena, this is not like give your minions +1/+1 is a 1 mana card. I like in the game from like 4 years ago. Like this is a 3 mana card, and your minions can't be targeted by spells or hero powers. Whoop-de-doo. That is not like a hugely beneficial mod in Arena. So just this is a D, and it's barely a D. It's bad.
Yeah, it it just is really bad. That's basically it. I don't know what more to say about it.
Yeah. Graveyard Shift. You want to do the next one?
Sure. Graveyard Shift.
As I try to find it.
Yeah. I'm waiting for you to pull it up first.
Yeah. That's why can't I pull up Graveyard Shift?
I don't know why you.
There's Graveyard Shift. Okay, I'll read it. It's a 3 mana, 1 green, a Graveyard Shift. Summon 2 1/1 zombies with Reborn.
2 mermies? How
2
can you go
mermies.
wrong with that? What's better than 1 mermy? 2 mermies. Look, it's fine. We have it at a C rating. It does its job, right? It like gives you corpses. It puts 2 sticky things on the board. Is it the power level that you expect from a 3-drop? Not really, but you still play 2 5s, right? If you play 2 5s, you'll, this is kind of okay.
Yeah.
I think a C rating is fine for it. Like, we're at that sort of like Yeti-ish kind of tier where you'll take this. And I think in today's meta, like you prefer something like this over something like Yeti, right? In which it is stickier. It is more awkward for people to clear. And most importantly, it also gives you corpses.
Yeah. If you think of like a normal 3-drop, 3 mana, summon 2 2/2s, that's normal. Like that's not special. That's I don't even know if that's C, that may be D+. This one's more annoying. And if you're thinking, oh, 2/2 or 1/1 Reborn, maybe on turn 1 they're similar, but even then I'd rather have a 1/1 Reborn. But by turn 3, you definitely want your 1/1 Reborn. So it's a C tier card.
Double Mermy, though. That's what you guys should focus on. All right.
Double Mermy is here. So Legend Heart in chat did point out a very good point, which is that I skipped a card, which should not surprise anybody. And that's a 1 mana. So remember, these are all rares. We've done the common ones for basic set. Now we're doing the rare ones. We'll go on to the other sets after this. So I skipped this because it should have been done first. It is Rune Forging. Rune Forging is a 1 mana shadow spell. Draw a weapon. Spend a corpse to reduce its cost by 1. So if you're not playing this on turn 1, if you're playing this on turn 1, that's probably a free mana anyway, because you would play anything else besides this almost on turn 1, unless you know the weapon you're going to draw is 2 mana and you need it for turn 2, or like some weird stuff like that, right? You're probably going to have a corpse, and you spend the corpse, and so this is effectively free, and so you effectively swap this card with a weapon in your deck. Weapons are good. You want weapons. Well, the one weapon we've shown is not good, but you're probably not going to draft it that much. There's some good weapons in Death Knight.
There's some good weapons. There's some decent weapons. Even the weapon that we showed, you're like, you could draft it. I don't know. It's not a bad card. Like you can and will draft it sometimes. You're just not going to be super happy about it, but that's okay.
Yeah. So that's Rune Forging, and of course the downside is that you draw all your weapons before this card, and then the card does nothing. But normally this is like a pretty big plus. Like you want your weapon over a random card in your deck. Okay.
Right. Now we can move on.
Let's move on to Ymirjar Deathbringer. Is that how you pronounce it? Because it's Ymir Jar.
I actually don't know. I'm going to sit this one out. How about that? I'm gonna sit this one out.
Because this isn't the
Okay.
only one. There's a couple of Ymirjar cards.
You can call it Ymirjar. That's
Ymirjar.
fine.
Okay.
It's Ymirjar. Yeah. Yeah.
So the Ymirjar Deathbringer is a 3-mana 3/3, and it has taunt. And Death Rattle is spend 3 corpses to summon a 3/3 Risen Ymirjar with taunt. And again, Risen stuff we now know do not generate a corpse. But yeah, it's a bear, and bears really suck these days. So if you want to play this on curve, you better have 3 corpses, or else you're playing a very weak 3-drop. If you do have 3 corpses, you get 2 of these, which is good. Definitely great on turn 3. But after turn 3, you're still spending the corpses, and 3 mana for 2 bears, 1 coming off on the Death Rattle. It, that's more than you normally get for the mana, but it's not exactly game-changing. So we rated it a B.
B is good. B is fine. You know, B is fine. So I feel like this is another example where you're just like, oh, bear is bad, blah blah, and people are like,
it's a
oh,
double
it's
bear.
Gonna be yeah, it is a double bear. Yes, it's a double bear. Double bear is fine. Double bear is absolutely fine.
So what's keeping this kind of like B is kind of, I hear people in chat saying, oh, this is actually kind of high. There is a chance you can play it as a 3-drop. You only need 3 corpses, and it provides...
And you only need 2 before you play this.
Yeah, exactly. So let's say you coin out a 2, and then play another 2, and you're able to kill both of them. Or you just have like a Murloc Tidehunter or something. Like, this thing becomes amazing on 3. So a decent part of its value is actually being able to be triggered on 3, because it's such absurd value if it happens. Now, it's unlikely that you'll be able to trigger it on 3, but if you do, crazy things happen. And that goes, like, that's one of my worries about these cards that are on curve and have the corpses mechanic, where it takes corpses and then it gives you a whole crap ton more tempo. This is hardly the only one. I don't know if we've done another one yet, but there's like a few of these in here. They're terrible for Arena. They are awful for Arena, because there's no strategy in it, there's no skill. You either end up with those corpses in the early game, or you don't have those corpses, and the card goes from either like pretty much unplayable on curve to like win you the game almost if played on curve. This is not going to be good for Arena.
All right, go next.
Next is Rimefang Sword. Speaking of better weapons, it is a 3-mana 2/3 weapon. That feels normal, 2 blue. After your hero attacks, reduce the cost of a spell in your hand by 1. Remember, this has 3 charges, so you'll eventually reduce it by 3. You'll reduce something by 3, right?
You'll reduce 1 or multiple things by 3.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's a B.
That's good. The reduction matters. Like, you know, getting that tempo, you effectively get this for free after a while, right? You make up for its cost. And we can talk about, crazy things happen all the time, but making stuff cheaper, especially spells in which like on average, spells tend to give like a bigger swing, right? They open up the game a lot more. So you reducing the cost of spells is really, really freaking good. You know, you obviously want your weapon to be a little bit more attack, but the effect is really, really nice.
Yep. Yeah, that's an example of a better weapon than the first one we showed you. Next is Rime Sculptor. Rime Sculptor is a card I need to find on this list. Why can I not find this card on this list? Oh, because it's freaking 5 mana. I didn't realize we jumped so much. That was a 3 mana card. We're now at a 5 mana card. Rime Sculptor is 5 mana, 1 blue, 3/3 undead. Battlecry. Summon 2/2/1 Rime Elementals with Death Rattle. Deal 2 damage to a random enemy. So these are skeletons, but they're 2/1 instead of 2/2. And you have a 5 mana card that's already giving you 3/3, 2/1, 2/1, and then they have the Death Rattles. It's a B.
B, very solid. It's good. It's like a little mini Dr. Boom.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a little well, it's not common, it's rare, but like a common sort of Dr. Boom sort of thing. It's really nice. This is one in which I even consider, I'm like, yeah, maybe it's a B plus, but I think I'm fine with where it's at. It's not like, I think it's just an appropriately good power leveled card for the current meta. That's where we're at. So if you want to say it's like a B plus or something, sure,
It's too RNG. It's still too RNG.
It's not too RNG, but it's a little more RNG than I would like for it to be in order to bump it higher. But it's super solid. Like you're going to be very, very happy drafting B tier cards. So this is going to be like a very often drafted kind of thing.
All right. So next up is the epic cards. We've gone past all the commons, we've gone past all the rares for the basic set. Now we're on the epic cards for the basic set. And the first one is a big one. 2 mana, obliterate, 1 red. Destroy a minion. Hard removal. Your hero takes damage equal to its health. So there we have it. It's a 2 mana hard removal in Death Knight. Requires only 1 red, which means almost all decks can have access to it. It's a B.
Yep. It's good. It costs a lot. Here's kind of the problem with a card like this. Health matters. Like health really, really matters. The tempo does matter. Like it does, and it's quite nice. I feel like what you are going to want to do a lot of time is just use this on that mid-sized minion.
Yes.
Like if your opponent drops at like 8-8 or 8-9, there are games in which like if you're winning a lot, yeah, you can get rid of it. You don't care. Going from 28 to 20 life, you really don't give a damn there. But it's those competitive games in which you're just like, oh man, can't I just pay like 2-3 more mana to have an assassinate, right? To have a Siphon Soul instead. Like I don't need this extra tempo.
Yeah.
So that's really what's holding it back. There's going to be games in which you're really happy that you have this sort of tempo advantage playing this instead of playing something boring like an assassinate. And then there are games in which you are like, wow, this is, if not unplayable, really, really dangerous and awkward. So, and I see people are like, well, hey, blood is all about like gaining health, and there's they've given Death Knights like lifesteal, and yes, that's true. You don't really get to from my from what I understand and from my expectations, you're not stacking your deck with lifesteal items. You're going to be in trouble a lot of the time. Arena is kind of defined by its unpredictability and the unstable power level of your deck. So maybe some people are looking at this and they're like, yeah, like I never thought it was that good. But for
I
those,
feel like most people think it's insanely good.
It's not insanely good.
It's not.
It's not. It's definitely not insanely good.
Just
I think the smart players are going to look at this as like a mid-game flame cannon, and they're just going to take that instead.
That's its purpose. That's why it's good. By the way, I think I said it was a B. It's a B plus. It's not a B. So but it's not quite an A. I feel like most people look at this and auto think it's an A.
And I remember it being a B plus, and then you said it was a B. I'm like, all right, you downgraded it. I'm fine. Like I am.
Yeah, you're even lower on this card.
Not a biggest fan. And once again, this comes from me saying like B cards are good, and they are still good. But it's just, I think there are some people who might look at it and they're like, oh, it's like really, really good. And it's no, right? Like 2 mana for this conditional, not conditional, like, but an assassinate that has a life cost to it. Do not like.
Like, think about it this way. How much would you pay for an extra mana? How much health normally? It's like 3 or 4, right? Well, how much are you paying for this compared to an assassinate? It's like 4 if you want to use it as normal hard removal. So you're not really getting a deal here. You're just changing stuff. So you better want the stuff. What makes this card, like, I like the card. You need to watch out for its power level. It's not as absurd as some people think it is. But the flexibility is awesome. Like Merp said,
Yes.
you're going to use it as mid-range removal most of the time, I think. And only as big removal in the emergency situations or the I'm super ahead and I just want to end the game kind of situations. But 2 mana for mid-range removal? That's cool. That's a great use. 2 mana normally deals like 3 damage or 4 damage in a weird way. If you can use it to deal 5 damage, like, sure, you take some face damage, but you do that on turn 4 or 5, that's a big swing. And it's a very skillful card because you have to know when to use it, when to hold it, what targets to use it on.
Yep. Okay. That's where we're at.
Repulsive Gargantuan is the next card. It is 4 mana, so, and it is 1 blue, 3/6 undead. Enemy characters can't be healed. I don't think there's much to say about this. It's pretty much a Yeti. It even kind of looks like a Yeti. It's very chilly. Very chill windy. It's fine.
So what's the score?
It's a C. It's a tiny bit better than a Yeti. It has that ability that could screw your opponents. It's undead. Something's going for it that Yeti doesn't. But yeah, no, it's not. Pretty boring card. Like, this is what I mean, right? Like, I don't understand constructed, but I guess this is a really fancy constructed card. Because this card in no way, shape, or form should be an epic card, while some of these other common cards have like 8 things attached to them, and it's really hard to even understand what they all do. But yeah. Alright. Next epic card is Grave Strength. I'll read it. You want to take it?
Sure.
Okay, it is 4 mana, 3 green. Remember we said about 3 greens and the ability to dictate the shape of your deck. Shadow Spell. Give your minions +1 attack. Spend 5 corpses to give them +3 instead.
Yep. Look, this is a D+. You could turn it into some permanent sort of bloodlust. The thing with bloodlust is, like, a lot of times you don't need bloodlust to be permanent. 5 corpses is a good amount. Like, it's not insignificant, right? And without spending the 5 corpses, God, it's so bad.
Unplayable.
It's unplayably bad. Or you play it and you're just super desperate, right? Like, you're gonna lose. You're super desperate. So that's why we're at where we're at. Like, bloodlust being permanent doesn't help out that much. You have to spend 5 corpses, etc. But look, you can use it at some point.
Yeah.
It's not like 5 corpses is impossible to get.
And you're going to be at 3 greens, so you're going to get a bunch more corpses. But you're also going to use a bunch more corpses. Like, I feel like greens use more corpses than they actually generate.
Yes.
If you're picking the good cards.
Greens use a lot of corpses, yes.
So, like, one of the things actually hurting it from its own perspective is just the fact that it's 3 greens. It's going to give you more green cards that's going to compete for the same pool of corpses. You're not going to generate a lot of them if you take the high value arena cards. So yeah, and also Bloodlust sucks. Like, Bloodlust is no you could pick it technically, but it's like bad. And D+ is, I know it sounds bad, but D+ is kind of where, like, the best D+ card is like a Yeti, right? D+ is maybe slightly better than a Croc. Like, they're very draftable cards, D+ cards. They're just not, like, you should never be excited about it.
We're gonna tell you what to be excited about, and it ain't this one. That's fine.
Alright. Next up is Stitched Giant. Stitched Giant is a 10 mana card, 2 greens, 8/8 undead, costs 1 less for each corpse you've spent this game. So need some of that green synergy. And we have that as a D. But I'm going to put a huge asterisk on this one. This could be insanely good if you have the deck. And because Death Knights allow you to draft in a more synergistic way if you hit upon that like 3 green in the early going and you go down this green route where you spend a lot of corpses. This could be an insanely good card for the right deck. And the right deck is not like a 1 in 100 deck. The right deck is probably like a 1 in 10 deck. So
Yeah, I agree with that. So whatever our score is here, I would say just look at your deck. Like look at what you've drafted, how you can utilize it, because there's a decent chance. I mean, not a high chance, but there's a decent chance you could be already down the path of a deck that can really utilize this in a good way. You know, this isn't some other giant, like for example, Clockwork Giant, in which it's like no, like the you creating a deck that makes those giants work is non-existent, right? It's one in like 1,000,
yeah.
or like the situation is not something you can control. This is something very controllable, and it's something that on average won't be good, but it's worth checking out and worth evaluating. So don't look at this score and just be like, well, you know, it's not good. On average, it's not good, but it's very doable. Like very, very doable to make this good.
Yeah. Basically, don't start with this. You may look at 2 greens and you're like, 2's almost 3. No. There's a ton of class cards that's 1 red or 1 blue, and they will still be in the pool. You really do need to lock down that 3 greens or lock down the actual cards that are spending corpses before you commit yourself to this card. It's kind of what the rating means. And know that you're unlikely to hit it, but not in a super rare way, just in a, way less than 50% way. Okay. Let's go on to some legendaries, because we're doing core cards first, so we're on to the core card legendaries. Normally we save the legendaries for the end or whatever, but we'll do this before we go to Path of Arthas cards. The first legendary card is a card that, it's a character that we've seen before, but not in this form. It is the Tharian. I don't know if I pronounced that right. 4 mana, 1 blue, a 3/3 undead, reborn. Battle Cry and Death Rattle. Deal 2 damage to a random enemy.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff.
It's good. Look, it's a B plus. I saw that this card was run in a lot of constructed decks in the past week during like the promotional invitational tournament or whatever, and you could already see the power there. This just does a lot, right? And it's sticky. It the RNG is not something that you love, but we talked about this when we talked about the skeletons as well. If you just have enough skeletons and enough procs of 2 damage, you care a lot less, right? This isn't stupid flame juggler 1 damage and you like really care where it goes because you're playing it on the 2/1, right? You're like, okay, well, this determines a huge swing in the early times. This is much more forgiving, as in you have more chances at it. It's nice. It's a nice little B plus like legendary that you're just happy to draft.
Yep. Next legendary is Deathbringer Saurfang. This is 2 red. 5 mana, 3/5 taunt. So it's Ascension. Undead. Death Rattle. Return this to your hand. It costs health instead of mana. So the first card is a 5 mana Ascension. The second card is a 0 mana, but it will cost you 5 health Ascension. It's interesting, and you can think of it as a 5 mana card that is a 3/5 taunt, and then a turn later is another 3/5 taunt, assuming it dies, and it deals 5 damage to your face. That is a lot of stats. That is a lot of taunts for only 5 mana. This one is a A-tier card.
The A-tier card. I think the way to think about it is, look, the initial body obviously isn't great for the cost. What is health, right? Like, let's get philosophical here. What is health?
What is life?
Yeah, what literally what is life in Hearthstone? aren't you just creating better health with this minion? The answer is yes, you are. So do you make up for it? I think if you are able to use it once, you've already gotten a decent amount of value out of it because you have more effectively turned your health into, because like they have to get past taunt anyways, right? They have to get past taunt anyways. So if they get past that, they've essentially, or you've essentially used up that 5 HP anyways. So it's you being able to turn your HP into more effective HP that can impact the board. It's you being able to kind of like repeat it if possible, to gain that advantage to push, right? So when we say health is a resource, it literally is a resource. Like, there's this play between like health and your board and your options. This just makes it a hell of a lot closer. And that choice is good. I like it. And you can think about the scenarios in which like you can't play it, don't want to play it. It's a little too risky. I understand all of that. But I think there's a lot of times in which you can, and even when you just play it once, I think it's worth it.
Yep. A tier card. All right, next one is Overseer Frigidara. It is a 6 mana card, it has 2 blues, and it is a 5/6. Battlecry, draw 2 spells. If they're both frost spells, deal 2 damage to all enemies. Now, set aside its power and whatever. Once again, here's the caveat. If the first card you pick is 3 blue, almost all of your spells, maybe all of your spells, I don't even know if there are neutral spells, there probably are, I haven't checked, but if not all, then almost all of the spells that you're able to draft are frost spells. And then you get a guarantee of this effect. But this only has 2 blues in and of itself, so even if this is the first card, you may end up with non-frost spells. But yeah, you're still drawing 2 spells. Assuming you still have 2 spells in your deck, that's a lot of draw. 6 mana, 5/6 body with 2 draws is really damn good. This is a B+.
Yeah, it's really good. I think that the kind of the problem, or like when you average out this score, it if you are fully committed to frost spells, I think it's like real easy to pick this one as well. Like super easy. It just gets a little bit awkward when you have already picked like something else, like your 1 blood double frost, right? And then you're like, oh, how good is this still? You're just gonna have to evaluate it as is. But if you're guaranteed to get double frost spells, it certainly elevates it a lot.
Oh, hugely. Like, I don't know if it's S tier, but it's probably S tier if you have only frost spells.
Something like that.
Okay. Next up is Patchwork. Patchwork is in the game now, finally. No longer just in BGs. 7 mana for 6, undead. Battlecry, destroy a random minion in your opponent's hand, deck, and battlefield. You know, what Patchwork does in Battlegrounds. This is good. In case you're wondering, if a 7 mana 4/6 that's a hard removal and makes your opponent discard a card is good, it is the A tier card. It does a lot. It also, if your opponent is just holding like one of those, super power cards, this has like some decent RNG chance of killing it.
Yeah, that's true. Like it's not coming out early, so by that point, sure they have top decks and maybe recent cards they haven't played, but whatever giant bomb is in their hand, that's probably still there, right? And they had a lot of turns to draw it, to just keep it in their hand or whatever. So if they have a Sire in their hand, the later the game goes on and the less cards they have in their hand, you could just burn that Sire.
Yep. So yeah, that's Patchwork. A tier card, very good. And last, but very much not least, last and most, is Lord Marrowgar. Welcome to the first S tier card in Death Knight and the only S tier card in the core set. It's legendary. You don't see it that often. But you will see it. It is 8 mana and it requires 3 greens. So when I say you won't see it that often, I don't just mean it is legendary. It is also legendary, and you are only going to be offered it if you have not drafted a red or blue rune card yet. And you are very likely to draft a red or blue rune card pretty quickly in your draft. So this guy has a very low chance of showing up in your average Death Knight draft. But if he does show up, he's really, really good. 8 mana, 9/7 undead. Battlecry, raise all of your corpses as 1/1 risen golems with rush. For each that can't fit, give 1 +2/+2. So they become 3/3 rushes if some don't fit. And it raises all of your corpses. How many corpses do you have? Well, you're 3 green, so you gotta manage it. Like,
you gotta manage it. And this is something that you can, like, okay, if you have to use it early, you have to use it early. Or you can save it up for just a giant bomb play. I mean, and if it's beginning to sound a little bit like Sire, that's because it kind of is. Now, it won't kill the opponent right away like Sire, but this is one of those cards in which, like, okay, when you first reach turn 10, when you first reach turn 8 for this thing, are you going to use it? I don't know, maybe. You'll see. But then by that time, you're like, oh, yeah, I have 7 corpses. Do I have a decent play? Let's just do that. I don't need the rush. I don't need all of this. Let's just make stuff bigger, right? So this is one of those cards in which all those corpses that you've built up, this is like the best way to use it. This is such a good way to use it. And if you don't need it, that's great. Let's play other stuff. Let's juice up these big rush minions. If you have to use it, fine, you use it, and you have initiative. It's amazing. So I think this is easy S tier. Some of you might think corpses are easier to get than they are. Some of you might think it's harder to get than it is. But if you view it kind of in the way that you view Sire, as in, if you have to use it, that's fine. But you can save it a lot of the times, and then suddenly, like, your opponent's like, "Whoa, they have to be out, right?" You're like, "Oh no, you've just been playing into my hands the entire time." Like, now you got to deal with this 9/7 and, like, you know, like quintuple 3/3s with rush. So, yeah.
Yeah. And because of how this card is with the 3 green runes, your main problem here is really going to be corpse management. Not in the sense of generating corpses, but in the sense of using corpses. Because all of your class cards, or like a lot of your class cards, are going to use corpses. Green is very corpse hungry. And you don't want to use corpses if you have this card, unless you have to, because this is the best use of your corpses. So it's actually a tricky card to use in any draft that would actually have it. On the bright side, because it's 3 greens, you're much more likely to be offered it early in the draft than later in the draft. You can start, like, kind of deprioritizing other cards that use corpses. Like, once you have this card in your deck, any card that uses corpses competes with it and should be valued significantly lower than they would normally be valued. Which kind of sucks, because you're 3 greens, so a lot of the good cards you're going to be offered are cards that are going to consume corpses. It's like a lot of interesting drafting choices with Death Knights and these runes. I think overall you just draft, and then, you know, you see what happens to it, but you got to be thinking about these things at least once you have the runes in your, like, draft. Like, once you know you're like a this many this rune, this many that rune kind of draft, you really kind of have to, like, you're a different class now, and all the valuations have already shifted. So I don't think you need to proactively do anything crazy with the runes. Maybe you will, it depends on the meta, whoever knows. But at the very least, you have to reactively refigure out all of your valuations of your draft once you know what runes you have. All right. That's it for the core cards. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. We got 4 common A tier cards. That's a decent amount. It's a good amount of power coming in. And then on the legendary side, we have 2 B+, 2 A's, and 1 S. So it's good power. It's not like super broken things, and everything's kind of in control. But really, it's all the Bs. Like, I'm just looking down our list. So many Bs and B pluses.
All right, time for Path of Arthas.
Time for Path of Arthas. Okay. Path of Arthas. This is, I think, 22 cards, and this is going to be coming out at the same time as everything else. This is the equivalent of whatever the Demon Hunter little mini set to get us started is. It's meant to make up for a lot of the previous sets that all the other classes have, but they're not core, so they come in, they go out. For Demon Hunters, a lot of the most annoying cards you associate with Demon Hunters are in this kind of mini set. So we'll see how Death Knight works. First, Horn of Winter, 0 mana, Frost Spell, refresh 2 mana crystals. It requires 2 blue.
They just won't let people innervate anymore.
Yeah, and ramping is a lot better than refreshing mana crystals. This is D+. It's draftable. D+ is kind of like a little better than a Croc. You're still tempoing out, right? It's the appropriate amount of tempo you get. You just can't ramp.
The good old days of turn 1 coin innervate Yeti. Those are gone.
Alright, next up, Icy Touch. 1 mana, Frost Spell. Deal 2 damage to an enemy and freeze it. Doesn't mean you don't kill it already. This one's a C.
I think I wanted this one to be higher, but like, it's fine. It is what it is. Yeah.
The vast majority of times you're using... I'll tell a story that's probably going to take longer than it should, but...
Okay. Why?
Yeah.
Why'd I ever disagree?
Yeah. One of the cards that I was designing for Gods Unchained back in the day that I totally misvalued was this card. It was Icy Touch. It was not called Icy Touch, but it was called something very similar. And you deal damage to a minion, and then you freeze it. And the valuation for that was super off, because I had not properly taken into account that you almost never freeze the minion. If you're dealing damage to a minion, you're killing it. That's how the game works. So the fact that you also freeze the minion is more of an alternate use. It's almost like choose one. Deal 2 damage to a minion or freeze it. And much less of, hey, it deals 2 damage to a minion and it freezes it. So even though it reads deal 2 damage to an enemy and freeze it, what it's actually doing is deal 2 damage to an enemy minion or freeze it. And if you freeze it, you get a tiny bit of bonus. And that's why it's only a C. Because for the most part, it's just going to deal 2 damage. You're going to kill something with it. And at 1 mana, cards that only target minions, as we know now from all the basic cards like Holy Smite or whatever, you should deal 3 damage.
Well, yeah, but this can go face.
Yes, okay, fine. So, yes, this can go face, and it is, it's accounted for. But yeah, so it's more like Arcane Shot, right, which is still 2 damage. But what would you rate Arcane Shot? Like a C. Like, Arcane Shot's not great. Okay. My way too long diatribe on this card. It's trickier than it looks. Bonebreaker. Next card. Again, we're doing commons first. We're not on rares yet. This is Path of Arthas. Bonebreaker is a 1 mana weapon. It requires 1 blue. 2/2 weapon for 1 mana. After your hero attacks a minion, deal 2 damage to the enemy hero. So, you can swing with this on minions, and you'll still get that face damage. It's a B.
Good. It's good. I just, once again, I think the effects of, in order for a card to be kind of like A tier or above, the effect has to be a little bit higher. It has to just have a little bit more lasting impact. This is just a very nice tempoed weapon.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yep.
And yes, if you guys remember Bloodclaw from way back when, holy heck.
I mean, even
instead of damaging ourselves, we're damaging the enemy hero now.
Yeah, but Blood Clot, even when it came out, like, we were one of the only people who, like, thought it was usable at all. And we didn't think very highly of it. And it was
I
kind of
drafted it
usable.
sometimes. I drafted it sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like, it was kind of usable. We were right about it. But, like, it was never a good card, right? Even back then, is kind of my point. And this is a B tier card. It's a good card. And all you had to do was do a swap of 9 health / damage to face to turn it from a bad card for back then to a good card for today. Alright. What's next? It's a Ymirjar. Ymirjar Frostbreaker. I told you there were more Ymirjars coming. It is a 1 mana card, 1 mana and 1 blue rune, 1/2. Battlecry, gain +1 attack for each frost spell in your hand. Like, this is a D+. Could have a frost spell, then it's a 2/2. Whoop-de-doo. Are you gonna have 2 frost spells? Rarely. And if you don't have a frost spell, it really sucks.
you certainly don't want to like keep that many spells in your opening hand in the arena. You like so on a mulligan, if you were to keep this and you're keeping a frost spell, you're kind of hurting your mulligan just in order to get like a
1 mana
1 mana
2/2.
2/2. Yeah, it doesn't really make any sense. So that's why it's at where it's at.
Yep. Plague Strike is next. This one is a 2 mana card. It has 1 green rune. It is a shadow spell. Deal 3 damage to a minion. If that kills it, which it almost certainly will, summon a 2/2 zombie with Rush. This one's a B+. It does a lot of stuff. It is very good.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like a very high B+. If you guys want to say it's like an A, I'm okay with that. But this is just like really, really good.
Yeah. Like, remember, it can't go face. It would be an A if it could go.
Yeah, that would definitely push it over.
Next up, Dark Transformation. Assuming I can find it. Here we go. It is a 2 mana, 1 green. Dark Transformation. Transform an undead into a 4/5 undead monstrosity with Rush. You want to take this one?
I just misread this one at first, but it's good. Look, this is a B card. A huge percentage of the time, it's just going to be you hero powering for 2, you playing this. Oh, sorry. You get 1 extra face damage probably because you go face with the 1/1 first, and then for 4 mana and the use of your hero power in addition to this card, you have created a 4/5 rush yeti that dealt 1 face damage. That's good. That's nice, but 4 mana for a rush yeti these days, that's kind of where it's at. It's a B because like yeti itself is like the lowest C. It's like the lowest of C's, right? So the rush does a lot. It's nice. And there are like fringe cases. I'm not gonna say like super fringe, but can you turn
Mermies
something
are everywhere.
Sure. Can you turn something other than your hero power into it? Yeah, you could, and people can leave stuff up and whatever. But you're going to be turning your hero power a lot, and it's nice. It's solid. B.
Yeah, like, look, turn 1 Mermy, turn 2 Dark Transformation, win game, right? But no, it's a 4 mana Rush Yeti. All right. Next up is Glacial Advance. Glacial Advance. I'm saying it repeatedly because I can't find it. There we go. Alright, Glacial Advance is a 3 mana frost spell, 1 blue, and it deals 4 damage, including face, like wherever. Your next spell this turn costs 2 less. So, it's a fine card, but you have to play another spell on this turn in order to actually use its ability. And I don't know how many spells you have. Spells are oftentimes weird and sometimes they need targets. So it is unclear that you will get good use out of a second spell. But it's at least 3 mana, deal 4 damage, and you could get 2 extra mana out of it in certain circumstances. It's a C.
Yeah, I don't think anything has to be said about this one. It's not that easy to have another spell in hand, and for you to want to use it all. But Shadow Bolt's still fine.
Howling Blast is next. Another 1 blue spell for 3 mana. Frost spell. Deal 3 damage to an enemy and freeze it. Deal 1 damage to all other enemies. So you have a mini swipe for 3 mana. And swipe is good. This card is good. It is a B.
Swipe is good. It's a B. Okay. I think we said enough.
Next up is Darkfallen Neophyte. If I can find it. There we go. Darkfallen Neophyte is 3 mana, 2/5, undead. It's 1 red. Battlecry. Spend 2 corpses to give all minions in your hand +2 attack. Once again, it's 2 corpses for something you play on turn 3. So it could happen, especially if you have a coin and you coin 2 into 2, but it's very unlikely to happen. If it does happen, though, that's a pretty good big buff. It's a C+.
Yeah, so what's a 3 mana 2/5?
Probably a very low C.
Okay. So yeah. You're spending 2 corpses to get this effect. Now, I do like the effect. I think the effect is nice. This is one in which, like, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, maybe we're underrating it. Maybe this could be like better. But okay, once again, I'm looking over at chat, and what people are focusing on is like how apparently hot this character is. Simmer down, guys. All right, we're arena nerds. Let's keep being the arena nerds that we are.
Really? Okay. This character is supposed to be hot? I don't know. Maybe I'm just not into that. All right. Either way, this is something that is, C+. You're gonna, it's like almost like a normal card in your deck, right? This is kind of just the power level now.
Yep.
Okay. Next up is Asphyxiate. Asphyxiate. Asphyxiate is 3 mana. It is 2 red. And it is a shadow spell, and it says destroy the highest attack enemy minion. So it's pretty much a 3 mana assassinate. Maybe not exactly. You don't technically get to choose, but that's probably your target anyway. And it's a beat.
Yep. Lots of Bs. Look, if you guys are just like, wait, have they just turned into dreads? It's like B, their new like 4.5. Kind of. Not because we don't think about it like somebody else does. It's just you can tell like this was a consistently designed set from Blizzard and the devs. They're just like, okay, we want things to be this powerful, and they've been pretty much matching it, especially with like the non-legendaries, right? Legendaries we can get like into the really crazy stuff, but the devs and Team 5 were really like, okay, this is exactly how powerful it's going to be. And I don't know anything about Constructed. The synergies and how things work together are much more important than individual kind of like power levels, right? And it's part of the reason why like the 2 mana refresh is probably going to be played in Constructed a decent amount, but it's a bad card here. But yeah, like you could tell a lot of thought went into this design, and because of that, it's like you have a lot of cards that are very, very similar in overall power level.
Yep. And I'll add it here because we didn't do a deep analysis on this before, but you take a look at this card and you're like, I want this card, right? Let's just say I want this card, I pick this card. Well, you only have 1 rune left. And this is with anything that has 2 red or 2 blue or 2 green. And what's that one rune going to be? Let's say you take a blue. Well, then you have some card draw, you have some removal, you have some, other stuff to fill, but you will not have synergies. Because all the synergies are in green, Unholy. And if you take this card and then you take a green, well, you're going to have some synergies, you're going to be able to use your corpses a little well, but you have almost no card draw. And you also are missing like freeze and some other stuff, right? It's not like these colors only mean one thing, they come with a package. But when you're drafting, you got to take some of this stuff into account. So Asphyxiate, and that's also why some of these cards are like a little bit better than what you're used to seeing. I don't think they're that much better than what you're used to seeing because there's not that big of a power creep, but they have a cost. That rune limitation is a cost, and having 2 red runes, I mean, it's also potentially a benefit. You can get like more red, right? But red especially, it doesn't really come together. Like green is the one that comes together. Blue kind of comes together, but not really. Red really does not come together. Red is like, it life steals and then it uses up your life sometimes, but like it's the least synergistic in Arena of the 3 colors. And so it's mostly a cost when you pick something with 2 red runes. So yeah, just something to think about.
All right.
Yes. Next up is Malignant Horror. Malignant Horror is 4 mana, 2/4 undead, reborn. At the end of your turn, spend 5 corpses to summon a copy of this minion. This does not have a color cost, and it is common. You're going to see this a lot. We rated it a B. So, if you have no corpses, 2/4 reborn, that's not a B. Probably not even a C. But if you do have corpses, this thing is 1, potentially never ending. 2, it generates like almost half of the corpses that you need to keep this going. And like it can single-handedly win you the game, basically. So it's a very swingy kind of card, depending on what is happening.
Yeah, this is I think this is one that is easily kind of like overlooked by some people in that you're kind of used to this idea that, oh, if I spend corpses, it'll be something risen, it'll be something like that you won't be able to kind of recoup. You recoup some of this stuff. It's like you go to the grocery store and on the box itself they'll have a coupon that's like $2 off and you're like, oh, this is $4. I get $2 off coupon like just on the box itself. That's great. And then this is kind of the same thing. Like you get the discount just on the body of it itself, not the discount, but like because it generates corpses. And once again, you're able to summon a copy of this minion afterwards. So if you have just a ton of corpses, you create a ton of these. Now, whether or not you actually have the corpses, want to use it for this purpose, I don't know. Maybe so, maybe not. It's not a bad use of your corpses though, and it keeps giving you like some corpses to help you keep this going. So you can poo-poo the stat line. You can kind of be like, this isn't that much. The more I think about this card, the more I'm like, oh, this is fine. Like this is not as bad as I initially thought it was. So that's where we're at. We're at a B rating.
Mm-hmm. On curve is going to do nothing, by the way. Nor would you want like a 2/4 with reborn on curve as your 4-drop. It's a pretty desperation play, but it's so rare to get a game-winning card, and this is one of those things that like it works really well in the arena because you have limited options in the arena. So your opponent will really struggle to remove this after you play it with 5 corpses because they will have 4 bodies to remove. And if they don't remove 4 bodies, you can pretty easily on the very next turn, even if you just have 1 or 2 extra corpses, generate this whole thing again and keep it going. And that whole removal sequence has to deal 4 damage, 4 damage, 1 damage, 1 damage. And each time they fail, you add another 4 damage, 1 damage that they have to deal with. Like, this card in the modern era is one of those rare single game winning cards if your opponent doesn't have an answer. That's a lot of value.
It's a lot of value. And look, I understand some people are saying like summon an exact copy can be bad. Like it could be good, it could be bad. I get it, right? Like you sometimes might not get as much stats as you want to get because it is like, you know, a 2/2 or a 2/1 by that point.
Mm-hmm.
But I think overall it's still worth it. We're not rating it super high here, right? It is a B.
Yeah, it's a
now,
B.
a B is good. B is good. B is good. Once again, this is like the standard 4.5 out of 5 by Mr. Dr. Eads here. But once again, I think it is well designed. I think it is a card in which they obviously are going after a certain power level. You guys are stating the downsides. I agree. I see it there. And then the upsides are there. But I think this is a card that could be like sneaky good. That once you guys use it a few times, you'll be like, oh, okay, this is better than I expected. Now, I don't know what you guys expect, but I think some of you guys are expecting a lot less out of this card.
Alright. That was Malignant Horror. Next up is Nerubian Swarmguard. Nerubian Swarmguard is a 4-mana 1/3 taunt that summons 2 copies of itself as a battle cry. It's undead, it has 1 green. Pretty straightforward. It's a B. It's you get 3 what do you call those, Voidwalkers for 4 mana. That's very good. It's super annoying. Is it great on curve? Not exactly. But it is great utility in every other scenario.
All right. Did you say the score for this one?
Yes, it is a B.
Okay. Yeah.
Don't overlook the 1/3 taunts. If you have not been trapped behind a wall 1/3 taunts, they are.
Man, it really does seem like we just threw a B on everything, doesn't it?
I mean,
Damn.
that's what it all comes out to be because they valued them all the same, right? Like they created all of these in this range. They were good about balance in this whole Death Knight creation, unlike Demon Hunter.
4.B stars. That is correct.
All right. So that's it for the commons. Let's move on to the rares for the Path of Arthas set. For the first rare, it is Blood Tap. Blood Tap is 2 mana, 2 reds. Remember we said about 2 reds. And it is a shadow spell. Give all minions in your hand +1/+1. Spend 3 corpses to give them +1/+1 more. So there is a card, I forget what it was called, in Paladin that did this without the corpse part. And it was pretty good. These days it's probably not pretty good, it's probably just okay. But this card is a C+.
Yep. This is one of those things where I'm always curious about, like, what's the calculation there? What's the numbers? What are the numbers behind this? What am I expecting here?
Oh, if you're playing it on turn 2, you're expecting to buff about 3 minions. Most of them are probably...
turn 2, it's awful, right? Like, turn 2, it's...
No, it's not awful. I mean, okay, it's bad in turn 2, but it's not, like, super awful. It's not super awful if you have a 3 and a 4 drop, for example. Because you're going to get your curve back with your 3 and your 4 drop that you miss on 2. Now, you would obviously rather play a 2 drop, but it's not like unplayable on 2. I wouldn't say that it is unplayable on 2. But later on, and not that much later on, right? Like, let's say turn 5. You can play this with a 3 drop, already get 1 +2/+2 on it, use up your 3 corpses. Now you just spend 2 mana for +2/+2, which is about normal what you get if you just spend 2 extra mana without spending an extra card. And then you would get a +2/+2 on all the rest of the minions in your hand, which at 5 mana, you should still have about 3, even if you're not drawing cards. So then you get more stuff. It's like, I don't think it's a hard card to use. That's just where the power goes, right? Like it's a good way to get more tempo while still getting a decent amount of card advantage with it. Like it's stuff.
So here's what, okay, because this one is one that I didn't math out, and I'm just like, this seems reasonable. conditioning is one of those cards in which like it was really good, right? Well, first of all, we thought it was very good, and then it turned out to be like really, really good, and just like, and I don't know how this is going to shake out, as in how not how easy it is to get corpses, but like how valuable corpses are, such that you using 3 here like matters that much. How full your hand is going to be for that conditioning, because whenever conditioning was very good, that was also in a meta in which you generated tons of cards in your hand, right? You always had a ton of cards in your hand, which is what made conditioning super duper good. So I also see comments like kind of comparing this to conditioning, and it's something that I considered, but I don't know. I don't know exactly what the math is on your expectations for what this is going to be later on, because you would compare it to a conditioning, not like what was it, the Grime Street thing that you play on turn 2 to buff your hand, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's what you would want. That's what you would prefer to play it, right? Because it's like a bad Grime Street, and Grime Street today would be like maybe an okay card, but probably bad. Yeah,
it would be bad.
Okay. So that is Blood Tap. Next up is Hematurge. 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 It's a 2-mana, 2/3 minion. It is 2 blood, again, 2 red. Battle Cried. Spend a corpse to discover a blood rune card. Yeah. Are you gonna have a corpse on turn 2? Probably not, but sometimes maybe. And what would you do if you don't have it? You would probably not play this card, because you really do want to discover a blood rune card.
It only costs 1 corpse, man.
Yeah.
That's nothing. You're only using up 1 corpse. Like, you also want to look at corpse efficiency, right? Like, corpse efficiency. How are you using it? Sometimes you get like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Discovering a blood rune card is kind of like that. That's big efficiency, right? Like, specific cards you're able to narrow to specific sort of like situations. And also like, you always want like class cards, right? You don't want just like, oh, discover like a 3-mana card or something, in which case you can get stupid. I mean, look, we don't have silverback patriarchs anymore, but you don't want like a patriarch in the pool at all.
Yep. This is a A, by the way. This is a tier card. It is very, very good. Yeah. All right. So next up is Vicious Bloodworm. Vicious Bloodworm is another 2-mana card, so we're in the rares now. It is a 2-mana 3/2, so on curve minion. It's a beast. And Battle Cry, give a minion in your hand attack equal to this minion's attack. This is a nice free effect. And it is a B. Like, +3 attack is a lot.
Yeah. It's good. It's fine. Move on.
Next up is Death Chiller. Death Chiller. Oh, there we go. Death Chiller, another, a 2-mana 2/3 elemental. It has 2 blues runes, and its ability is after you cast a spell, deal 1 damage to 2 random enemies. That includes your opponent's face. Split damage. I mean, fine. Like, we've seen these in older sets, and they were good, and they dealt like 3 or 4 damage for the same effect. Like, I don't know. This one's just not all that impressive to me. It got a C+.
Yeah. Look, this is you can think of some crazy stuff you can do in constructed, maybe, and who knows if it's good or not. But in Arena, we've always had these things, and they've played out the way that they've played out.
Yeah. Yeah. And oh yeah, what we should mention, it doesn't say hit the same target twice. So it can't like you would have to play multiple spells to like make it actually function as removal. Otherwise, it's just gonna hit face.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do Unholy Frenzy. Unholy Frenzy is a 3-mana spell, 1 green, and it says choose an enemy minion. Your minions attack it. Resummon any that die. You wanna dig into this meaty one? This is one of the most interesting
No, I
cards.
don't.
You don't. Okay.
I don't.
Okay. Well, all right. Let's break down what happens here. 3 mana, so you're already close to what you should expect from a hard removal, right? Hard removals are 4 mana. You pick an enemy minion. All of your minions attack it. So presumably that thing dies, right? Like you have to have some minions on the board when you play it, or you play the minions on the same turn, and then you kill a minion. So you kill your opponent's minion. And your own minions that die get resummoned, which doesn't really matter if they were at full health anyway, or they don't have a kind of like reborn effects or like, you know, anything, death rattles or anything interesting. So what this card really is it's a decent removal, like hard removal, in green, which is interesting because it's not red. And then, on top of that, you could synergize it with Reborn, with Death Rattles, and it could go kind of crazy. The bad part is you're not getting a lot of damage out of it if you're playing other cards with it. So you really do want to have some stuff already on the board. So it is a little dependent on other things. Overall, this ended up with a C+. It's a pretty damn fair card. They like built this card really well. It's super interesting. It creates this different dimension for the Death Knight. I mean, it's not totally unique. We've seen this card, before. But the Death Knight is going to be able to really use this well because it has Death Rattles, because it has Reborn, and it's just about how well you synergize with it. Like that turns it from like a okay card to a good card.
All right, that's fine. That's good enough for me.
And in case you guys are also wondering, it doesn't just like I see comments in the chat that think it's a little low, but consider that your minions may not die, and if your minions don't die, this doesn't do anything on the minion side. So like if you want to remove your opponent's 4/12, if you have any mid-sized minions, they don't die. This does nothing. So
it's actually awkward. You're hoping for that perfect scenario where they put out like an 8/8, right? And all of your minions that were kind of like low in health or something. It just requires this sort of perfect situation in which they can't put out something too small. They have to put out something big, but you also have to like have the like the right minions as well. I just think it gets awkward. So you can certainly win the game sometimes with this card. I think it's going to be more awkward than not. So that's why I also don't believe in this card in the arena, even though you would think it's like, oh, the arena, like you want to play with it's so board centric and everything, which I think we agree with you, but I think it's much easier to think of the good scenarios rather than the awkward scenarios here.
Yep. And it's not like the good scenarios are hard to come by. It's just that there's also a significant number of scenarios in which this card is pretty much unplayable, or just doesn't function as the more or less hard removal that you need it to function as. Okay, Tomb Guardians is next. And Tomb Guardians is a 4-mana shadow card that is 2 green. Summon 2/2/2 zombies with taunt. Spend 4 corpses to give them Reborn. In case you don't know, 2/2/2 zombies with taunt is shit. It is bad for 4 mana. You don't do that. It is not on curve. You don't do that. But 2/2/2 zombies with taunt that get reborn to be 2/1 zombies that also have taunt is in the super, super, super annoying and effective taunt category. And so you do have to use 4 corpses to do it, but you are going to be able to get a very good effect out of it. And this is a B. You also get your corpses back after they all die.
Yep. No, it's a good use of corpses. Super duper annoying. I like this one a lot. B, 4-point B. Okay, we can continue the meme. Yes, it's 4-point B. Great.
All right. Next up is Corpse Bride. Corpse Bride is a 5-mana 4/4 undead. Battlecry. Spend up to 8 corpses. Up to. Summon a Risen Groom with stats equal to the amount spent. This one has no rune requirement. So, any deck can have it. 5 mana, 4/4. How many corpses you got? At this point, probably 3, 4, maybe even 5 if you've been corpsing up a little. And you're going to get that extra 3/3, 4/4, 5/5 on curve. And if you don't play it on curve, and you stack up some corpses, that's 5 mana for 8/8 and a 4/4 later on in the game. It's a lot of stats. This is an A tier card.
Yeah. I mean, this is just good. This is just really good. Like if we're looking at once again corpse efficiency, right? This is a great way to use up those corpses, get a ton of extra stats, put out 2 bodies at the same time. You know, like a 4/4 is fine, right? 4/4 is nothing to like laugh at. So this is good. This is just going to present a lot of problems for your opponents. I think we're going to look a lot at just sort of watching, like, this is going to feel bad because you're going to see your opponents compiling a lot of corpses and you just don't really know how they're going to use it, but you kind of have to stay aware of it. Like if they're out of corpses, you know their potential is lessened as well. If they have tons and tons of corpses, you know they can just pop off at any given moment. So it's something that you want to always keep in mind, but what are you going to do about it? You know, there's not like a counterplay to it. You can't be like, oh man, I can destroy all of their corpses if I just do this. So yeah, it like you can maybe plan for something, but a lot of these are just giant swings, right? Um, I'm not sure what exactly the plan is there, what the counterplay is. Maybe it's like, oh, I have to go face immediately because if I don't go face, then they can just use their corpses and then win the board off of me.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know what the counterplay is. I think you just kind of like sit there and take it.
Yeah, basically.
It's like, what happens if my opponent has a lot of like tempo essentially that they've been like saving? Like, imagine if your opponent has infused a bunch of stuff, right? Like, what do you do if you know they've already been infused? Yeah, you could go face, but you'll get 1 turn of it, and then they'll unleash the infusion, and then you're...
Well, at least with infuse, if you've been tracking their hand and they haven't played anything for a while, you can make a further guess.
Yes,
right?
You have a better read. You have no idea what's going on here.
Here, it's like they could top deck something at random.
Yes.
That uses up a ton of corpses, and then suddenly it's like, oh well, I wasn't expecting that. And now it happened. Like if they top deck, what was it? That 5-drop that deals 5 damage after you infuse it, right? They have to wait. They can't do anything about that. Or they top deck the Fool, but this is very different. I don't know if I like it. A lot of it is going to just depend on how the meta shakes out, what the cards are in the new expansion. Like we haven't seen all of them yet, but that's one aspect that I don't love. You can kind of see this like corpse counter go up. What am I supposed to do with it? I'm not supposed to do anything about it.
Nope. All right. Corpse Bride is in the books. Next is Might of Menthol. Why can't I find the Might of Menthol? Oh. Sorry. Next is Marrow Manipulator. That's why I can't find it. Marrow Manipulator is a 3 blue card. 3 blue card. So it locks you into full blues and it won't come up unless you've only been picking blues so far. It is a 6 mana 5/5. Undead. Battlecry. Spend up to 5 corpses. Deal 2 damage to a random enemy for each. That's random enemy, not random enemy minion. And that means you can deal that 2 damage up to 5 times if you have the corpses. It's otherwise a 6 mana 5/5. It's pretty well priced. It's a B. Not fancy.
Of course it's a B. Come on. What, you think we spent time on it? It's a B. 4-point B. Let's go.
Let's go. Yeah, it's just not a fancy or a particularly interesting card. It's a corpse usage card. Okay, so that's it for the rares. We're now on to the epics. The first epic card is a 2-blue card, 4 mana, 4/2 weapon, like a True Silver. Battle Cry, spend up to 3 corpses. You could easily have 3 corpses at this point. Freeze that many enemy minions. So, this is one of those where, is it a good way to spend corpses? Kind of depends, right? Not that you get the choice, right? It just spends the corpses. But it's still a True Silver at the end of the day. So it is a B.
Look, guys, I swear, the thought was put into this. But yes, this is another B, okay? 4-point B. Let's go.
They just gave a lot of Bs in this set. Which, you know, if you think about it, it makes sense. If you're trying to design a new class, where do you want the vast majority of their cards' power to be? B, right? Like, you don't want them to be C, that's not interesting, that requires a lot of synergies and whatever. Like, you maybe have a couple that requires those high synergy things, but they're not going to be the bulk of your deck. And you don't want that many A's, because the A's are like the power cards, right? You need to know what the really good cards are, so you can see that the decks are going to be designed around that, and, you know, whatever. You don't want any S cards besides in legendaries, really. And there are no S cards in this in Death Knight that are not legendaries. So I think they just did a really good job with the power level for Death Knight. And that's what you're seeing a reflection of. Just like Blizzard getting the balance down right, at least from an arena perspective. Which I know is not what they're balancing for, but it's good to know the new class isn't like crazy and coming in and going to totally destroy Arena.
So, I see PJ made this comment in chat. It's like, there seems to be a very wide range for B. There's definitely a range for B. This is what happens when we don't do exact scores like on the mythical, historical, Lightforged tier list, right? So you guys aren't going to be like, why is this a 134 and that a 132? Why do you think this is better? There's a wide range.
Yeah,
but
like the ranges go bigger, right? Like C has has the smallest range, and then B has a bigger range, and A has an even bigger range. You guys don't even worry about the range of A's, but the A has a very wide range actually. S has a super wide range.
So B is part of what makes B kind of a point of emphasis is because that is where the tension happens,
Yes.
right? Nobody really cares. And once we get into S tier, kind of nobody really cares. Like, you're gonna call Colossal Minions broken. You're gonna call something like Caverns broken. Nobody really cares at that point the relationship between that. People do care though with like the relationship of one B card to another, because it's like, oh well, I will encounter this more. That may or may not be true. It's something that is more tangible, and for me, I don't care about the upper thing, whatever, because if I lose to this brokenly disgusting card, I kind of lose anyways. It's like if I'm going to get blown up by a nuke, I don't need to debate this. But I will debate the danger of like a butcher knife versus, I don't know, a spear, right?
Yeah,
and
I think
like,
that's a really good analogy, because people always talk about it with like nukes. It's like, this nuke is this many gigatons or like whatever, and in my head I'm like, why do we care? If you're gonna nuke a city or like an area, it's getting nuked. Like, I'm sure the environmental damages and the human cost and whatever is higher or lower, but like, we've already passed the point in which it's just labeled in my head as super duper 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 bad. And there's nothing higher than super duper uber uber bad. That's it.
All right.
Okay. Anyway, we just dealt with Might of Methanol. That is a B. Lucky for you guys, the next 2 cards, spoil it for you, they're both A's. 2 epic A tier cards coming up. And the thing with epic A tier cards is you're going to hate them. Because you can't play around them because they're epic and you shouldn't. And they're going to come in and destroy your life. First one is Blood Boil. 5 mana, 2 red. Lifesteal. Infect all enemy minions. At the end of your turns, they take 2 damage. So,
Lifesteal.
Yeah.
Real good.
Lifesteal. You get a lot of health immediately. You get more health afterwards. It's 5 mana. It's going to use up your turn. So this could very easily deal 4 damage to everything on the board just over the course of 2 turns. And you're gaining the life to sustain yourself while this is dealing the damage. It's really good. Is it broken? No, it's 5 mana to deal 2 damage to everything. It's definitely not broken. But it's really good if you just want to like hang out and survive a bit in your kind of control deck. The downside, of course, is that it's 2 red. We say this 2 red thing a lot because it really locks out a lot of the things you may want to do if you want to survive a long time. It may lock out, like, you may want some cards. Well, now you only have 1 blue for the cards. You may want some big, gigantic minions. Well, now you only have 1 green for that. So, yeah. See what the neutrals are, right?
If you're stuck with red, this is a great way to get stuck, right? Like this is what you want if you're going red. I can't believe I'm saying red instead of like blood. But yes, if you're going red, this is what you want.
Okay. Blood Boil. And yeah, in case you're wondering, never play around this card. It's epic. Next up is Frostworm's Fury. Another A tier card. This one's 3 blue. So you know exactly what you're getting if you're picking this card. You're getting all blues. And this card is great for blue. It's 7 mana. Blue is the card draw card in the freeze room, remember? And this one deals 5 damage, freezes all the enemies, and summons a 5/5 Frostworm. It just does everything you want it to do.
Yep. This is like a new age UI kind of a flavor, but like new age Portal kind of a flavor as well. And this is something that I really liked, and you didn't like as much as I did.
Yeah, I mean, it's a portal, right? Like, it's a portal that freezes everything, all the enemies. So Portal is okay nowadays. It's not even like good. Now, of course, when you attach Portal with a Frost Nova, it becomes a lot better. That's why it's an A. But at the end of the day, it's still a Portal, right? Like, but it's synergizing really well with the blues, which is great because it's 3 blue. So you're gonna have a lot of blue spells. Freezing everything is effectively health. It synergizes with your additional freezes. It's a 7 mana card. If you have blues, you're structuring everything to like get into the late game because that's where your card draws and your whatever stuff all lead to. So this is a very good synergy card for 3 blues. Some of the other ones where you just get like 3 of a color, you're like, ooh, I now have to deal with it. But this does exactly what you want for a 3 blue card.
Yep. All right. Go next.
Next, we're into the legendaries. Path of Arthas is in the books except for the legendaries. First legendary, Lady Deathwhisper. Lady Deathwhisper is a 4 mana, 3 blue, 4/3 undead minion. Death Rattle. Copy all frost spells in your hand. And this one is a C+. You're going to have a lot of frost spells because it's 3 blue, but how many of them are in your hand? That's the question. Because you're paying for it. It's 4 mana for a 4/3, and it's a Death Rattle. So it's not even a battle cry, which could be good, but it could also lock your hand if you can't kill it for some reason, like if your opponent's also playing slow. Or maybe you don't want to kill it. Maybe you have a good trade, and you're like, but I kind of need to use the spell, so I need to copy it now. It's just a little bit awkward, and yeah. But still overall very powerful.
That's it.
Next one, Frostmourne. You guys remember this card? Why do we know this card?
Because it was a reward from the Lich King.
Oh,
Remember?
yeah.
played this game before.
I've played with this card in the arena. I've done this. Why do I know this card? Okay.
It came from the Lich King.
So Frostmourne is a 7-mana weapon, 5/3. But the Death Rattle is summon every minion killed by this weapon.
Yes. Also, other people mentioned this as well, in which case I will mention it because it is important. You know you have reviewed other cards that were offered to you by the Lich King already.
Wait. Really?
Yes. Like Obliterate. Like the anti-magic shell.
Oh, that's why those are so familiar.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
No, I didn't realize. I know there was something familiar about them, but I didn't realize. This one, I'm like, I played with this one.
Right. Okay.
Wait. So what did the Lich King do? Did it just offer you a choice of these like set cards?
It didn't offer you a choice.
It just gave you a random one. Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting. I had totally forgotten about the Death Knight era. It's so long ago. KFT was like, what? Was that like 5 years ago? 4 years ago?
Oh my god.
It was a long time ago. And you know what? They really don't bring KFT back that often.
Okay. Great. Fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Someone in chat says, where is Arthas? Yeah. I like barely remember Arthas exists.
Yes. Arthas also gave you one. It was just, it was a cuter variant and an earlier variant, but it didn't, have the stats.
Mm-hmm. So Frostmourne was insane. It's still super good. It's an A+ tier card. You gotta have some health to use it, but if you could last 3 turns and not die, you kind of just win the game.
Same concept as before, right? Except what the Lich King was really good at doing was you played an 8/8 taunt. The Ironbark Protector is going to protect your face while you kill stuff and resummon it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like very synergistic with the Lich King himself. This is a little bit different. I mean, not saying that's like, oh, you can never get a taunt if not for the Lich King. Like, whatever. You can get more taunts, right? But it was nice to see how synergistic the Lich King was with this weapon.
Yes. And same idea. Same idea as before when you saw someone with a Frostmourne. Go face. Because you're about to die if they don't die on a 2-turn timer.
I mean, look, we can talk about all the crazy stuff that happens in Arena, but at the end of the day, in a board-centric format, and if you're not like being pushed significantly, this can just lock out an opponent. Like, you have a little bit of extra damage, maybe you have a little bit of a board. What are they going to do? You just win with this card.
They have 2 turns to kill you, and you have given up 2 tempo to use this card that you will doubly make up for the next turn. So they have 1 turn before you tempo swing on them, and they have 2 turns before they just lose if they don't have like effectively direct damage. It's still an insane card. All right, now we're there. We've gotten to the card everyone's been waiting for. This is the card that is actually an S tier card. We got to the S tier card before. It was the last card, Lord Marrowgar, for the basic set. This card is also, again, the last card. It is the Scourge for Path of Arthas. Legendary spell. Shadow spell, 2 greens. 9 mana. Fill your board with random undead.
I mean, look, people are spamming S. This is an S tier card. Now, here's the thing. Did you do the calculation for what exactly you're supposed to get, like on average?
No, not well. Okay. I didn't. I just used average minion. I didn't use average undead.
So I saw it being played because it was played in the little tournament earlier this week.
Mm-hmm.
The boards are insane.
Oh yeah, they're better than like what the normal minions are.
Yeah, like better than what normal minions are. Because there's big ones, there's ones that like do things, right? There's ones that like draw a card, there's ones that like deal damage, like even not as a battle cry, right? So it just seemed really good. So this is one that I didn't like math out or anything. I just looked at, and then of course the rotation for the arena could be very different, right? I don't really know. It could also be crazy because they like limit some like bad choices potentially. I got no clue, but I saw what it did. I'm just like, okay, well, this is crazy. Like, this is really,
Wait,
really
wait,
good.
hold on. Is that right? I'm reading this in chat right now. I have no idea if this is right or not. Rare Cat said this. There is one with Death Rattle, you die. Is there an undead with Death Rattle, you die? Okay, Legend Heart in chat has confirmed it. You die in 3 turns. Okay, you don't die immediately. It has to
Yeah.
die first, and then you die in 3 turns. But oh my god. Okay, I mean you win the game in 3 turns after you play this card, so you're fine.
Yeah. So I think you will take that chance. That's fine. Yep.
All
Look,
right.
and this is one in which I just tossed this in S tier. I'm like, I don't know if it's, once again, I'm not doing the math, so I don't give a damn if it's S plus or S plus plus or whatever. Let's all say it's S tier. We move on.
It could be S plus. Like we have not calculated. We don't have an
I
algorithm
don't know.
anymore. Like so, we're
Yeah.
not calculating all the specific undeads. We also don't know the rotation, as you said before, so we can't even calculate it. But it's somewhere between S and S plus. I will say this is a very high S, so it could easily go into S plus territory if the pool's good.
I saw it being used in the tournament, and each time I'm just like, well, this is insane. Like, you should never get this much for 9 mana. Like, what that does is effectively, it's like, I mean, you don't get the board clear, but it's like a super box in terms of its effect a lot of the times. Because a lot of the times you do get taunt, you know, you do get some like lifesteal or something that deals damage as well. Ridiculously good. Like, just
Yeah.
always draft this card. You're just gonna win the game on turn 9.
Why not turn 10? I don't understand some of these designs.
Yeah, I know.
All right. So that's it for Path of Arthas. You know, there were some good cards in there, but your basics like Battlefield Necromancer, Frost Strike, Remorseless Winter, Army of the Dead, those A tier cards, those are all basic sets. The Path of Arthas, really the big ones are Hematurge, which is 2 reds, and Corpse Bride, which is everybody. In terms of the A tier cards that we rated. And then you have your epic cards that you're just not going to see as much. They're also rated high, and your legendary cards. Let's move on to March of the Lich King. This is the first time we're splitting up a set because we figured we'd just do all the Death Knight cards all at once. So I haven't even looked at the new set cards beyond the very early reveals, but we have done the Death Knight cards. So without further ado, I mean actually with a little ado because I have to find these cards. Necrotic Mortician is the first one. Oh, I need to go find the set first. There we go. Second. Okay, Necrotic Mortician is a 2 green, 2 mana, 2/3. Battlecry. If a friendly undead died after your last turn, discover an Unholy Rune card. This is really good, but you got to do something to have a trigger, and it is a B.
It's a 4-point B, okay? It's a 4-point B. Let's move on.
Like, keep in mind, if it didn't have that ability, it would be the bottom of D plus, or
Yeah,
the very top of D, and instead it's a B because of the ability.
it's good.
Next is Acolyte of Death. Acolyte of Death is a 1 blue, 3 mana, 3/4. After a friendly undead dies, draw a card. Oh, I think this one may be misvalued. This one we have as a B, but I am 100% sure this one does not take into account the hero power. Now that I'm looking at it. So this one's definitely going to be higher. I don't know if it's definite. I don't know which part of the B spectrum it's at. It may just be a normal B. Because like you guys said, these kind of wide. But I'll go look at this afterwards again. But it could be B, it could be B+. I don't think it's going to get to A territory. But yeah, it's a 3 mana, 3/4 with a synergy, and your hero power synergizes with it.
All right, cool.
Okay, next up is Soulbreaker. Soulbreaker, these are all commons, by the way. Soulbreaker is 1 red, 3 mana, 3/2 weapon. You can see the diversity of the weapons that Death Knight has. It says after your hero attacks and kills a minion, gain 2 corpses. Not particularly significant, but it's still a 3 mana, 3/2 weapon. It's a C.
Fire War Axe just ain't what it used to be.
Yeah, it got nerfed.
Like literally got nerfed. Yes, but also even then, it's just not what it used to be, man.
Yep. Alright, next up is Vampiric Blood. Vampiric Blood is 3 reds, 2 mana, spell. Give your hero +5 health. Which, not heal your hero for 5, but like give your hero +5 health. So like armor, basically. Spend 3 corpses to gain 5 more and draw a card. So you're obviously going to spend the corpses because you can draw a card out of it, but its effect is basically gain 10 armor and draw a card. And you have to use 3 corpses. And it's 2 mana. It's a D.
It's not an F, because like you get to refresh the card. Health matters. So it's like F is like real bad, like unusably bad, right? It's a D.
Corpse Explosion is next up. These are the rares. It's 2 reds, 5 mana, battle spell. Detonate a corpse. A corpse. 1 corpse. To deal 1 damage to all minions. If any are still alive, repeat this. Oh. Okay. So I totally messed this up, because that is not what I thought this said.
I figured you did, and when I look at it, I'm like, wait, why did I okay this? This is not.
Why did you okay this? I made you look at it twice too for the March of the Lich King cards. But yes.
Well, no, I didn't look at it the first time, so I never.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good thing I reminded you the first time. But yeah, this is.
So yeah, guys, we need some more time with this one. There you go.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's just talk about the card then. I don't know how it's rated, but it's going to be better than what we rated it before. Because I had read it as Defile. And it is not Defile. As long as any are still alive, it will keep...
there.
Yeah,
yes.
It will keep dealing the damage. So it'll keep going up as long as you've got corpses and there is still something alive on the board. It is a card removal, essentially. Like a full board clear, double-sided, like a Twisting Nether, if you have enough corpses. And it's only 5 mana. But it is using up a lot of your corpses.
It could use up a ton of corpses. And you could not have that many corpses. Like, enough, right? Like, let's say you have 5 corpses, 6 corpses. That's sometimes not enough. And then you use up all 5 or 6 corpses, right? Like that's not great. But it's certainly like a good card.
Yep. So sorry you don't get the actual score or like tier for this, but we'll see. It'll be on the Google sheet if you look at it later whenever we're done with this. So if you're listening to this on the podcast, it's already up on the Google sheet. It's the same one we use for every card review. I don't have the link, but if you're in our Discord, you can just ask someone for the link, or you can look at the YouTube video, which should have a link to it, and any of our past card review YouTube videos should also have a link to it if you're like trying to figure out how to get that link and find all of these reviews, all of these scores or tier ratings in a nice, easy to view location. You can also look at the historical ones and see how wrong we were about predictions or how right we were about predictions. Okay. What was Corpse Explosion again in terms of it's 2 red? Okay. Yeah.
It's 2 red.
Yeah. Board clear is 2 red. That makes sense.
Yeah, you know what, guys? Just mark it down as a 4-point B.
Yeah, it's going to be a B.
Yeah, 4-point B.
Gonna be B.
Let's just do that. Okay.
All right.
Stop even pretending we put thought into this.
Bone Commander. Boneguard Commander. This one is 1 red. And this one is A tier card. It is rare. This is one of the reasons you want to splash a red, in addition to the some of the more awkward hard removals you get from it. The 8 mana 8/8 taunt undead. Battlecry. Raise up to 6 corpses as 1/2 risen footman with taunt. Remember how annoying 1/2's taunts are that we were talking about? With only 6 corpses, you can get a full board of taunts. That's 6 1/2s and an 8/8 of taunt, all for just 8 mana. This one's an A. It's real good. Now, the 1/2s aren't like game ending for your opponent. Neither is the 8/8. It does take 8 mana. You're getting more than you should get because you're using up corpses, but it's not like super overwhelming. But all of the taunts, it makes getting through to your face nearly impossible. If you're protecting a minion, that minion is fully protected outside of direct damage. It's just so good.
Yep. Ugh. I got nothing more to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a fancy card. It's just a really good card.
Definitely is not fancy.
Meat Grinder. We're now onto the epic cards. This one's 3 mana, 1 green, 3/4 mech, Battlecry, shred a random minion in your deck to gain 3 corpses. It's a C because it's pretty much what a spider tank is, and this is a slightly better version of a spider tank.
Better than a spider tank. I mean, not by like a huge amount, but yeah, it's better than a spider tank.
Another epic card. I don't know why their epic selections are so weird this round. Another epic card is Soul Stealer. Soul Stealer is 3 red. 8 mana 5/5 undead. Battlecry. Destroy all other minions. Actually a Twisting Nether. Gain 1 corpse for each enemy destroyed. So, not just a Twisting Nether, but you get a free 5/5 on the board, and you get a bunch of corpses. This one's an A+. It's good.
Yeah. So what holds it back from an S?
I mean, Twisting Nether's not that good. Twisting Nether's like a B. Like, how many games have you guys won with Twisting Nether these days? Very few. How many times has Twisting Nether been a dead card? Quite often.
Yeah. I think, like, that's one of those things where, and if you can say, well, if I'm ahead, I don't need that card. Well, if you're ahead, you don't need a lot of cards. Yeah, I guess. This is one in which I'm fine with an A+. If you want to say it's an S, I wouldn't disagree with you. But we're at that tier of goodness here.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now we're on to the legendaries. Remember, this is the actual new set, March of the Lich King. The other ones we had done before were first Basic and then Path of Arthas. First one is, there's two legendaries as usual. The first one is Blightfang. Blightfang is a 1 green, 3 mana, 3/3 beast. Battlecry. Infect all enemy minions. When they die, you summon a 2/2 zombie with taunt. So you're basically giving each of them a death rattle that says, give your opponent a 2/2 zombie with taunt. That's absurd. It is an A+.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's crazy good. It's just such a big kind of swing, right? Like a big swing. And I know you have to kill your like opponent's minions and everything. But it's so freaking good. And the taunt matters. Like you get these annoying taunts. You also build up corpses because of this. You just get like so much extra stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think easy A+ here.
This is like why is this 3 mana? Why is this whatever? The thing that like someone's asking what's holding it back. We like kind of map the scores out roughly, and then we like determine it. So it's not that like we don't want it to be an S. It's just like it came out as A plus, and we're like, yeah, that sounds about right. Like we didn't have to put a thumb on the scale or be like, well, but there are these special factors that like an equation won't like solve for this. It doesn't kill anything, right? Like you still you do have to kill them, which means that you're getting these 2/2 taunts later, maybe much later, maybe never, depending. And also, it's not a 3-drop. Like it's a 3 mana 3/3, but unless your opponent has a minion on the board, which they oftentimes won't. I mean, they usually will, but it's not an insignificant percent chance that they don't. Then you can't even play this card on turn 3, so it's not even a 3-drop. Or like you really shouldn't play it on 3. Because the effect is so good if you play it later on when they have like 3 minions. So yeah, like it's kind of awkward in enough scenarios that it's just not like the best card ever, right? But it's close. It is close.
All right.
Finally, last is another 3R card. 3R, 7 mana, 7/7, undead. Alexandros Mograine. Battlecry. For the rest of the game, deal 3 damage to your opponent at the end of your turns. It's a 7 mana, 7/7. Those are trash, but this damage adds up. You put your opponent literally on a clock. I mean, not literally. You put your opponents on a clock. And they will die.
At some point.
Yeah, at some point. We gave it a C+. A 7/7 by itself will be like a D. If that, like a low D. So this ability is actually getting quite a bit of points.
And I think it's fair. Like, you putting your opponent on a clock, you knowing that your win is going to happen if you just keep playing this out, or if you just push face, like, you will get there, right? You don't need that extra reach. If you just push face and then are able to stall for a couple turns, like you will get there. Even if they heal by a little bit, it's inevitable, right? That's worth something in 2022. That's worth a lot, actually, because War Golem is what, like, the solid D tier, right?
Like, I think it's low D. I don't have the math
like
in my
low
head.
D.
It's low D, I think.
It's like a low D tier. So this is worth a good amount. And I think that's correct. I think putting that pressure on your opponent, even if you don't win immediately, right? It's very, very valuable. And the meta might be super weird. I don't know. It might be super fast. I got no clue. But just from the metas that we've seen, I think that this allows you to win a lot of games that might be either really hard to win or that you just wouldn't have won in the first place.
Yep. If you want to think about the value of 3 damage every turn, think of I forget what the card was, just a card or something, where you like upgrade your hero power. When you upgrade the Hunter hero power, you don't get 4 damage to the face. Everything else doubles. The Shaman one's weird, you get to pick your totem. But everything else doubles, essentially. But the Hunter one only goes up by 50%. And it's also why Pyroblast is a totally shit card, in theory, but is actually quite good. It's because when you're able to deal a lot of damage to your opponent's face at once or in an inevitable way, it's super good. It's much better than just like adding 2 parts together. So this gives you a free additional Hunter hero power, and you can deal 1 damage charge with your hero power still every turn. And so you've effectively gotten an illegal double Hunter hero power while not really falling that far behind on the curve if you play it on 7. Like, that's such a huge advantage. Now, you have to get it on 7. If you get it later on, maybe it'll matter less. But it also removes a lot of options for your opponents. Like, a lot of times your opponent's like, oh, I'll take it. We were talking about using life as a resource. Your opponent wants to use their life as a resource, then stabilize the board, then win the game. That doesn't work anymore if they're taking 3 or maybe 4 damage every single turn, even after they stabilize. They have to play totally differently. You've taken away one of their like ways to win the game. And in Hearthstone, in Arena, there's usually like 2 or 3 ways to win a game at most. So you have drastically reduced their options. just by playing this card at some point.
Alrighty.
That is it.
That's it. We're done.
Those are all the Death Knight cards.
To those of you who stuck around for like 3 hours just to hear B after B after B, how do you feel right now? How scammed do you feel? Imagine staying the entire time to get 90% B ratings.
It's not 90% B ratings. It's not even 50. Okay, it might be. No, it's not even 50% B ratings. I'm trying to look at this. It's like maybe 33% B ratings. Maybe. It's still a lot. But, you know, are ratings usually that B heavy? I'm going to go back. I'm going to look at Narthia. Oh, no, they are not.
No.
This is just special.
Not. They're not.
Oh, yeah, they're usually all over the place, actually. If anything, there's a lot of C's.
Yeah, there's usually like a decent amount of C's. Well, it's like
but that's neutral. That's neutral. If you look at class cards, they're actually all over the place.
Cards. Yeah. Class cards. See, it just feels like this is an expansion review. This is not an expansion review. This is a class review. And so, yeah, guys, if you actually look at all the class cards in recent expansions, it is very B heavy. Like, there are lots of Bs, and it makes sense. Class cards are good. Neutrals are pretty crappy sometimes, and sometimes they do like weird things, right? They have weird stat lines, they do weird things. It's not what Arena is really about. It's like you have to be independently good. You have to just be real solid.
Yeah.
So it seems like an oddity, because it is, because we typically don't do this. There's plenty of neutrals that tone it down a little bit, and then you focus on like the Sin Runners, you focus on the Stoneborn Generals and the Fools and all of those, like the good neutrals. But most of the neutrals are just C's.
Yep. All right. Well, as you can see from all these cards, Death Knights can do whatever. They have some pretty ridiculous synergies if you can get the corpses or the undeads to line up. There are actually fewer undead synergies than I thought they were going to get. I feel like that's going to be a more explored aspect of the undead tribe in later expansions. But overall, it is an extremely flexible class, but it's also an extremely gated class. You see how many of these cards are 2R or 2G or 2B. And all anything means, if you see a 2R or 2B or 2G, it means you're not going to have one of each color. You're going to be totally locked out of one thing, whatever that thing may be. So, being locked out of one thing gives you a weakness, right? And your opponent can exploit that weakness in the arena.
In theory, I don't know.
I think it'll be very exploitable, actually. I don't think it's going to be all that hard to exploit Death Knight weaknesses, because you kind of you're going to get led down a path into it, right? You're going to be offered a 2B card or a 2G card or a 2R card quite frequently, and you're going to be like, this card is good. It's by far my best option. You can't not take that card. And when you don't not take that card, you've locked yourself out. And it'll just happen. And once you lock yourself out, your opponent will be able to exploit that. Once they figure out what's happening. So it's going to be really interesting playing against Death Knights. And playing with Death Knights, it's going to be, I think, a little bit more interesting drafting than usual, but I think the whole rune system is a little, outside of the fringe cases, it's a little overblown in terms of, skill. Because either we just all realize that red cards suck, and then we don't take any red cards until the very end of the draft. Or we realize, all green cards are super good, and we, favor green. But that's, something you learn pretty quickly, and you just... Right, it's not skill. It's a very basic sense of game knowledge. But when you're playing against your opponents, knowing what card is what and what they're able to do and how many colors they put out, that's gonna be huge.
All right, that's it. Let's end it. We're getting way past 2.5 hours. This Audacity recording is it's getting filled to the brim.
All right. Well, this, if you're wondering what time it is, I know what date it is. It is November 20th, the Sunday, and we are doing this this Death Knight review. We will be back to do the full March of the Lich King set on December 4th. On Sunday, and we will start that stream a little earlier as normal. We'll figure out the exact times and let you guys know later. But that is when the actual March of the Lich King card preview, review, whatever is happening, the one that goes many, many hours. But yeah, this is the Death Knight. It's gonna fit in so smoothly, guys. Like, just looking at this, like, I thought Demon Hunter was a little awkward of a fit, but Death Knight is gonna be super smooth. It is like the best of all worlds / a more complex version of all the worlds. It is nothing new. Or it's very, very little new. And it's going to just fit like a glove. Like, I'm excited about Death Knight. I'm excited to play as Death Knight. I'm super excited to face down Death Knights. It also doesn't look super powerful, which is really good from an arena perspective. So I'm just excited. I can't wait to get in and play with these cards and play against these cards.
Yep. Let's see how it goes. New cards. Yay.
All right. Until next... No, not next week. No, there's no Lightforge next week, by the way.
Until next time.
Until next time. Until 2 weeks from now. Next time. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. Goodbye.